Please be seated. Okay, good afternoon, members, once again. It has just gone 14:15. I'm now going to ask the Secretary to read the fourth order of the day.
Ingxoxo-mpikiswano ngomthetho sayilwayo wezimali wesebe lezemfundo leNtshona Koloni.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. I now see the Honourable Minister, Minister Mania.
We will spend a massive 29.55 billion rand on education this year in the Western Cape, which is an increase of 1.38 billion compared to last year, making the education budget the biggest budget of any department in the provincial government. And this is a clear indication of the value that we place on education and of our commitment to delivering quality education for every learner, in every classroom, in every school in the Western Cape. Yeah. Speaker, to deliver quality education, we need to reverse learning losses. We need to rapidly expand access to education. And we need to improve support to learners with special needs. Speaker, we will spend 399 million rand this year on an ambitious and indeed unprecedented plan to reverse learning losses in the Western Cape. We recently released the 2022 Western Cape systemic test results, which show that our recovery interventions are having an impact. But while there are some positive indications in the results, they also reveal that the learning outcomes of our children are cause for serious concern. The COVID-19 pandemic had a devastating effect on the performance of our learners when they were already struggling to pass in some of the subjects before the pandemic. And if the learning losses are this severe in our province, they will be as severe or indeed even more severe in other provinces. We simply cannot afford to say that a child is receiving quality education if more than half of our grade 3s, 6 and 9s learners cannot achieve the basic pass score for mathematics and reading. The fact is that learning losses is the critical problem that we must solve in our education system today. We will therefore be launching an unprecedented Back on Track program targeted specifically to learners, to teachers, and to parents in schools where our systemic test results indicate that the need is greatest. The program is designed to build on the existing interventions we have undertaken, which have already been implemented and which are already demonstrating good results, especially in the foundation phase. Most importantly, the program will cover all phases and all stakeholders in a massive collective effort to get our children back on track. We plan to provide added academic support to 18,000 learners in grade 4, grade 7, grade 8, grade 10, and in grade 12 this year alone. For example, we plan to implement a specific catch-up program in languages and in mathematics in grades 4, 7, and 8 for 10,000 learners in 200 schools, closing the content gaps from previous grades. And we plan to implement a specific mathematics intervention for 4,000 grade 10 learners at 140 schools based on the grade 9 mathematics performance in last year's systemic test results. The grade 10 intervention will include addressing content gaps from previous grades, structured tutoring, residential back-on-track camps, and providing each of these learners with the package of resources they need to succeed. We plan to provide additional specific professional development and support to 6,260 teachers in grade 1, 4, 7, 8, 10, and 12 this year. For example, 2,000 grade 4, 7, and 8 teachers will participate in an intensive program where they will be taken out of class every 10 days to receive dedicated professional development and support. And we plan to target training and support to 28,000 parents of learners in grade 4, 7, 8, and 10 so that they can help their children get back on track. This will involve parent programs in reading and in mathematics at 200 schools, providing parents with ideas and skills so that they can better support their children's learning. Over the coming weeks, we will unpack the full 3-year set of Back on Track program interventions for each school phase. Speaker, we have to take action to reverse learning losses. And so, to get the job done, we will spend $399 million this year on this ambitious and indeed unprecedented Back on Track program in the Western Cape. Speaker, we will spend 2.9 billion rand this year on rapidly expanding access to education in the Western Cape. We cannot say that a child is receiving quality education if there are too many learners in a class, if there are too few teachers in a school, and if there are too few schools in our province. And that was why we implemented our Rapid School Build program to deliver additional schools and classrooms across our province faster than ever before in time for the 2023 school year. We aim to deliver no less than 21 new and replacement schools for occupation by the start of the 2024 school year, which is 3 times the number of schools we built last year. 15 of those schools are brand new schools, while the remaining 6 replacement schools will replace inappropriate materials. We are also going to add an additional 289 classrooms to existing schools, over and above the new school builds to deal with admissions pressure. And we will be undertaking upgrades and modernizations at 28 schools, which is separate and in addition to our normal, scheduled, and ongoing maintenance at schools across the province. Of course, Speaker, the plan is not without risks, and we have always been open and honest about the risks. Challenges with finding suitable land, potential community disruptions, shortages of materials and load shedding. And yes, this is an ambitious plan. And yes, there are many risks, but that is no reason not to try. Speaker, we have to take action to rapidly expand access to education. And so to get the job done, we will be spending 2.9 billion rand this year on our Rapid School Build program here in the Western Cape. Speaker, we will spend an additional an additional 135 million rand this year to improve support to learners with special needs in the Western Cape. It's often said that the measure of a society is how it treats its most vulnerable members. And so we will spend an additional 68 million rand this year specifically to improve our support for learners with autism spectrum disorder. As part of our Rapid School Build program, we will be constructing 2 new schools for learners with special needs and an additional 28 classrooms at existing special schools or full-service schools, which will be able to cater for learners with ASD, with high support needs, and will be able to provide outreach services to public ordinary schools to support learners with ASD with low to moderate support needs. We will employ additional teachers. We will employ classroom assistants, and we will employ therapists needed for these additional schools and classrooms, and we will address the challenges in the identification and indeed the support of learners with ASD. We will also spend an additional 67 million rand this year on improving the resources available to learners with profound intellectual disabilities. We are currently in consultation with the relevant stakeholders to finalize the plan for the use of this funding so that we provide the necessary support to some of our most vulnerable children here in the Western Cape. Speaker, we have to take action to support learners with special needs. And so to get the job done, we will spend an additional 135 million rand this year alone to improve support to learners with ASD and profound intellectual disabilities in the Western Cape. Speaker, we also need to find ways to accelerate our efforts to develop the skills of our economy and to create pathways from education to work in the Western Cape. And so to get the job done, we will spend 5 million rand this year improving the implementation of career and work readiness training as part of the life orientation curriculum to provide career development support and expose learners to the world of work and workplaces. And we will be spending 531 million rand on the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative in our schools, which will ensure that up to 20,500 young people will gain paid work experience in our schools this year, giving them a leg up in moving into permanent employment or further studies, hopefully in the teaching profession. Speaker, we also need to find ways to make our schools safer. To get the job done, we plan to spend 76.1 million rand this year on securing our schools and promoting the safety of our learners at school. We committed to constructing secure fencing at 30 schools every year for 5 years. We will, in fact, reach the target of 150 schools over 5 years, a full year ahead of schedule, completing the fencing at the final 30 schools in this financial year. We are also expanding the number of school resource officers in our schools, which are law enforcement officers stationed at our schools to tackle crime and safety. This year, we will fund an additional 18 school resource officers, bringing the total number of officers deployed in our schools to 46. And next year, we will add 18, and the year after that, another 18, for a total of 82 school resource officers in our school. And of course, we will continue to invest in access control, holiday security, emergency security, youth development, and crime prevention activities at our schools. Speaker, we also need a collective effort to make our schools more energy resilient. To get the job done, we will spend 40 million rand this year alone to promote energy efficiency, generation and storage in our schools. Our LED lighting project, in conjunction with the University of Stellenbosch, has already seen high energy usage lights at 50 schools replaced with any energy efficient LED lighting. The new lighting helps these schools to save around 30% on their electricity costs while reducing demand on the grid. This year, we will replace the lighting of a further 25 schools so that they too can reduce their electricity bills and improve their energy efficiency. But we want to go further than just saving electricity and expand the potential for our schools to generate electricity. We have already received applications from 50 schools for permission to install their own solar PV systems, and will continue to support schools to take these steps to secure their energy supply. This year, our department will undertake installation of solar PV systems at 10 schools, generating up to 60 kilowatts peak, depending on the size of the school and installation. These installations, of course, reduce the school's reliance on the electrical grid while creating a valuable opportunity for them to sell their excess power to the grid. Finally, we will undertake a test case, full installation of solar PV, battery backup and LED lighting at one school to determine whether this kind of package installation is sufficient to provide the electricity a school needs for its core functions, including its administration systems and computer labs and lighting in key areas. Speaker, we all know that the education system is under severe pressure, and we need to work together with the private sector to deliver quality education in our province. So we are building on the successes of our collaboration school program and looking into new partnership models to deliver education to poor communities. But we also want to make the Western Cape the most attractive destination for education investment in South Africa. So to get the job done, we will spend 5 million rand this year for Westgrow to develop an investment facilitation capability, specifically for the education sector, to make it easier to invest in new schools and to invest in EdTech. We want to send a clear signal that we are open for business and that we want to build strong partnerships with the private sector so that we can increase and mobilize private sector investment in education in the Western Capes. Speaker, we are pushing the boundaries with this year's interventions to improve education in the Western Cape. But we must also look to the longer term and to the structural changes that we need to make to improve learning outcomes for the children of our province. And so to get the job done, we have asked the World Bank to undertake an education sector analysis, which will support us to set long-term priorities to improve education outcomes here in the Western Cape. Because the central goal of everything we do must be delivering better learning outcomes for our children. So I would like to get the job done, and I look forward to us building on the hard work we have done and will do in the coming year. Speaker, we have to take action to reverse learning losses, to rapidly expand access to education, to improve support to learners with special needs, to create pathways to work, to make our schools safer, and to make our schools more energy resilient. And this budget is going to get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister, Minister Mania. I now see Honourable Syed. Can I just do it before I, do you need the, all right, Honourable Syed.
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker, and thank you very much to the Minister for his input. Allow me also at the very onset to welcome our guests in the gallery, Mr. Linda Pitu, Fatima Isaacs, and Sibongile Glokolo, who are in the audience. These are activists in the education sector. They've often attended our committees, and they've been giving inputs in the committee, inputs that have actually informed the work that we do and the manner in which we hold the department accountable. Let me also say to the department, and let me also echo the thanks of the Minister to the officials in the department for being on call at times when we do raise issues and trying their best to resolve those issues. And I say this notwithstanding the fact that we are robust and highly critical when we do raise issues, but we do that in order for the department to improve on the work that it is doing. Speaker, the African National Congress welcomes the 4.91% education budget increase. Education remains a priority, an apex priority of the African National Congress. And this is why our national government has increased both the conditional grants as well as the equitable share for the WCED, thereby taking the department's total receipts to over 29 billion. The ANC is guided by President Nelson Mandela's vision about, and President Nelson Mandela says, and I quote, "It is through education that the daughter of a peasant can become a doctor, that the son of a mine worker can become the head of the mine, that the child of a farm worker can become the president of a great nation." But sadly, true to their neoliberal, open society ideological posture, President Nelson Mandela's vision is sadly undermined by the Democratic Alliance. The same Democratic Alliance who dishonestly appropriates President Mandela in this House. It is the DA who opposes the Basic Education Law Amendment Bill, which is meant to give departments such as WCED more power to actually having control over who enters the schools, not in terms of learners, having restrictive measures which discriminate against the child of the peasant, against the child from a poor community to become a doctor, as we saw what was happening in Oudtshoorn, for example. But that's just the start. The DA refuses to use education to address the structural inequalities.
Honourable Syed, please take your seat. Honourable Murray, is that a point of order?
Honourable Speaker, will the member take a question?
Please take your seat. I will pose the request. Honourable Syed, are you prepared to take a question?
Honourable Speaker, no. I'm amongst those who should be asking questions. Honourable Murray must ask questions to members of the executive.
The Honourable member is not prepared to take a question. You may continue, Honourable Syed.
Instead, the DA's modus operandi
Order, members.
in the education sector maintains and perpetuates widespread historical inequalities. And this is informed by the right-wing ideological posture, which they have made blatantly clear in this House over the past few weeks and days. We saw how they handled the Maré matter. But also they have partnered with the party of Peter Maré, with the Freedom Front Plus, in the opposition, and with the ACDP, in the opposition to the Progressive Basic Education Law Amendment Bill, which is meant to make education much more inclusive, which is meant to ensure that the language policy is also broadened. No, they want to keep our people out of certain schools, and they partner with the right wing in doing so. The 29 billion budget will sadly not be used to provide education for the learners of Zimasa Primary School or Langa High School, whom I recently visited, and we witnessed massive overcrowding of classrooms. But notwithstanding that, we still have hope that in the committee we will push and will make certain gains for some improvement to happen. To hide its incompetence and failures, the dishonest alliance has resorted to spreading misinformation in the public domain about our oversight of the executive in this House. Earlier this week, Honorable Bartman ran to the media to spread certain misinformation. The
Order.
ANC, quote, says
Order.
no to building new classrooms and clean running water. These are untruths with the purpose of misleading
Order,
the public
members.
and shielding the DA's failure to deal with the unplaced learner crisis. In response to the DA's dishonesty, Speaker, I wish to place on record and remind members of the ANC's member statement tabled in this House on the 9th of March 2023, in which I personally, on behalf of the African National Congress, welcomed the reallocation of 115 million rand of the education infrastructure grant to the Western Cape. And I criticized ANC-led governments in Eastern Cape and in Mpumalanga. We do not play games here. We are highly critical even of our own. Unlike those on that side of the House
Order,
who want to
members.
be deputy MECs and defend the MECs.
Order. On the members on my right hand side, interjections are allowed, but please do not drown out the speaker. Honorable side, you can continue.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. We welcome the reallocation to the province because there continues to be serious challenges of unplaced learners, which we even foresee for 2024, and overcrowded classrooms. That's why we welcomed it. We had, however, hoped that the 115 million, in addition to the 830 million increment in the WCD's infrastructure budget for 2022-23 financial year, will not be focused on the building of temporary structures purely. This is what we are vehemently opposed to. We are not opposed, and I reiterate, to the actual budget allocation. The ANC will never be opposed to building new classrooms in the province. We'll never be opposed to clean and running water in the province. What we are opposed to is when a school in Mitchell's Plain, and Honorable Mackenzie, and I want to thank him, knows it very well. He has actually worked with communities to assist in that regard. Where a school in Mitchell's Plain, such as Rocklands High, for example, such as Portlands High, has to consistently, SGB, members of the community have to consistently bring to the department's attention failing infrastructure that needs to be attended to, dangerous issues there, and it's not attended to. And you've got infrastructure budget not being directed in that regard. That's what we are going to be opposing. We are not opposing the fact that money has been allocated in general to a particular project. Colleagues who do not suffer from selective amnesia will remember that it is the ANC in this House who has always criticized the DA government's underspending of budgets and surrendering of funds to the Provincial Revenue Fund, such as the 350 million that was surrendered in the year of the local government elections, as well as the over 500 million that was uncommitted and underspent in the previous year. Honorable Speaker, I had to give this background not only to clarify the misinformation spread by the DA, but it is also to expose the fact that the underinvestment on school infrastructure by the DA during the tenure of the previous two MECs of education has resulted in the crisis of overcrowded classrooms and unplaced learners that we experience to this day. While I hear the MEC speaking about the collaboration schools as a means through which to have public-private partnerships, we need to be very careful. Also, a legacy of MEC Schaefer, and which the DA is continuing, is where in the collaboration schools, The private partners are allowed to have overreach in the school governing bodies, silencing the voices of communities and of parents in these particular SGBs. We need to be careful, and the department needs to look at that very closely. As at the last week of February this year, nearly 500 and possibly more grade 1 and grade 8 learners were still unplaced in schools. On the same date, nearly 2,000 learners between grade 2, 7, and 9 to 12 who requested transfers to other schools were yet to be transferred. This clearly exposes that there was an unplaced learner crisis. In fact, it is still a crisis, even if learners are now placed, because learners that have been placed have to catch up. We heard MEC Mania speaking about catch-up plans, but the budget doesn't speak to a catch-up plan for learners who have been placed late in our schools. Speaker, the DA will rather retain class privileges for a few than broaden quality education for the poor and working class majority. Because at the root cause of unplaced learner crisis, of overcrowded classrooms, is a decade-long underinvestment in education infrastructure. But also, very importantly, and we've made this call, is the failure on the part of the Democratic Alliance-led department to get former Model C schools to increase their classroom sizes. It does not make sense for certain public schools to be allowed to only have 20 to 25 learners per class, while others, such as schools such as Calitzdorp High, which we visited as a committee, as a social cluster, are forced to have over 70 learners in one classroom. And Member Bosman was there with us, so he knows full well he must not ask which classroom. The WCED's annual performance plan shows that in 2022, 9,479 classes in the province had over 40 learners in class, while over 436,000 learners were crammed in classes that have over 40 learners. It is highly unacceptable. And this is the legacy of the DA government in the Western Cape, which a new pro-poor government, which takes office next year, will need to deal with decisively. Speaker, whilst we welcome the...
Order, members. Order, members. Members, there's a member on the floor. Honourable Side, I'm trying to protect you, so please do not add to the interjections. Honourable members, please settle down. Honourable Side, you can continue. Honourable Side, speak to me.
Okay. Honourable Speaker, whilst we welcome the budget increase for the employment of more educators, sadly this is not accompanied by any commitment on the part of MEC Mania to address the imbalanced learner-teacher ratio in schools. I specifically raised this question in the committee. He and his officials were unable to respond to the issue. They could not give a commitment that the ratio will go back to what it's supposed to be. They could not make that particular commitment. It is more concerning, however, that in its performance plan accompanying the budget, MEC Mania's department does not address salary backlogs for certain educators. At the beginning of March 2023, an email was sent to the WCD, and I was copied in that particular email, sharing stories of 25 reception year teachers who have not been paid since the beginning of this year. The situation is still the same. They've still not been paid, despite the WCD in October last year meeting with them and saying that they'll capture their details in the system. This seems to be happening all the time. Capture details in the system and do nothing about it. It's not in the spirit of getting things done, as MEC Mania says. Due to the DA's failure in this budget to adequately address pressing challenges, such as the above and many others, we cannot support this particular budget vote. School safety, Honourable Speaker. I'm glad that MEC Mania spoke to it. And yes, we welcome the Premier's commitment and the implementation around the school fences. But let me also add, it's because of the pressure that the African National Congress has put in this particular house. In the first SOPA debate of this administration, we made the call for fences. So it also illustrates that do not try to curb robust opposition. Allow it to flow, because then you will also be able to implement what we are speaking about and to improve the lives of learners. But the ANC is concerned because in two committees now, in 2 consecutive years, when the department came to present on the budget, it has alluded to the fact that this project may be discontinued next year. We want reassurance from the MEC and the Premier that it will not be discontinued. Speaker, another ANC victory is the department's commitment to continue with the pop-up banners in shopping malls and other community centers in order to assist struggling parents with admissions applications for their children. Before we made the call, this was not the case. But we want this, and the budget doesn't speak to this really. We want this to be a permanent project of the department, not an ad hoc crisis management project. We need this project to have its own dedicated staff and a full budget. And currently, many civil society formations, including branches of the African National Congress and its Youth League, have embarked on campaigns to assist parents with these online applications. And we commend these patriots. But we want the program to be permanent. We will assist. PCOs will assist. Councillors will assist. But the program must be permanent. We are inundated, sadly, Honourable Speaker, with complaints from many parents about technical glitches in the online portal of the department. Some parents are saying that schools they want to apply to are not showing on the system. Trafalgar, for example, was not showing for some parents. Scottish Kloof Primary School, not showing when parents apply. These are just some examples in my constituency. Several parents are stating also that despite completing the applications, they still don't receive feedback showing which schools that they've applied to, and many other challenges, such as the system freezing on them. And this is not the first time that this has happened, Speaker. Last year, we experienced
your time has
the same.
expired. Please
Thank you very much, Honourable Speaker. What we are saying is
Thank you,
that in
Honourable
order
Syed.
for the
Please
situation...
take your seat. Thank you very much, Honourable Syed. I now see the Honourable Syed. Honourable Kasim.
Speaker, the EFF cannot accept this budget, as the reality is that not each and every learner in this province will benefit from this budget like the Minister make it to be. Can never be with the amount allocated, knowing the severe conditions of this province when it comes to education. The EFF do welcome the efforts being made by this department when it comes to education, and our communities need it. But unfortunately, we must reject, as this budget does not speak or do justice to all, especially in communities where African and coloured residents live. The mission of the Western Cape Education Department is to ensure that every child has quality learning opportunities and that of an environment that is welcoming. But in reality, this does not reflect and speak to the majority of schools and communities across the province, especially, once again, in coloured and African communities. We welcome the fact that this department allocated funds to build extra schools in the province, as well as additional classrooms at existing schools. But this does not make up for the hundreds of children from farming areas, informal settlements, and other desolate areas across this province. We are still unplaced, and we have to hike, walk long distances, and cross the rivers just to get an education. As the reality is that many schools across the different regions reside within the residential areas far from where these children live. And it is obvious that the budget allocated for this won't include planning for all communities. The EFF also notes the amount being spent on maintenance at schools across the province, but this maintenance program continues to exclude many other schools across this province which are in extremely bad conditions. Many schools in black communities do not reflect on the list of schools set for maintenance in this budget. Speaker, the EFF has concerns that not much is being done to tackle and prevent the influence of gangsterism and drugs on the Cape Flats. Innocent children are being drawn or recruited on school grounds to join gangs, and drugs continue to be sold open near school grounds. The budget for safer schools is very low and raise concerns as to which schools will actually benefit from it and what exactly will you be covering with that amount allocated. And more so, the budget for safer schools does not speak to all regions. Speaker, just as condoms are provided for free at schools, sanitary pads for girls must also be prioritized and given for free at schools. And then let me remind again on the prioritizing of programs that deal with tackling racism and xenophobia, because here, once again, the budget does not speak to it. For these reasons, among others, Speaker, the EFF reject this budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Kasim. I now see Honourable Christians.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, the ACDP supports this budget. The ACDP wants to give a thumbs up to the Minister and the Department for an excellent budget. It's really to reverse learning losses. When we talk about the interventions when it comes to learning losses, that's a push in the right direction. When it comes to the additional schools and additional new classrooms, that is a push in the right direction. We will always keep the department accountable for quality education because that is their mission and that is what they want to see. But we must say that at the moment, we still do not in all the schools. And the ACDP is calling on the department and the minister that every child in every classroom, as they say, must have quality education. Minister, it's also, you spoke about the school resource officers and the fencing, and that is welcome. But as the previous speaker said, we still have crime, drugs, and all of those things happening at our schools. Our learners cannot excel if they are not safe. But Minister and the department, well done. It's a push in the right direction, and we definitely support this budget, even when it comes to the inclusion of our parents, helping our learners to achieve more. I'm not going to comment on the dying ANC with their ridiculous allegation and cheap politics. I think this is a right budget. It's a correct budget, taking our province forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You'll always be welcome.
Thank you very much, Honourable Christians. I now see the Honourable Bartman.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker and fellow South Africans.
Order, members, there's a member on the floor.
Speaker, I'm ecstatic to note that with the allocation of 29.5 billion rand, the education budget is officially the biggest budget in the Western Cape province. It is now the budget to beat. This is because the department's task is a massive one. They maintain 1,526 public schools, educating 1.1 million learners across this province, not excluding approximately the 68,000 grade R learners and approximately 20,000 learners in public special needs education schools.
Honourable Bartman, please take your seat. Honourable Class, is that a point of order?
It's not a point of order, it's a question.
Okay, I'm going to allow it. I'm going to pose the request to the member. So please take your seat, and if the member agrees, then I'll ask you to pose your question. Honourable Bartman, are you prepared to take a question?
Given that I'm in my introduction, I have 33 minutes. I might be dealing with the answer in my speech. So I would like to get through that before I might take a question.
Okay, the member's not prepared to take a question. Honourable member, please continue.
Thank you, Chair. This does not include the 68,000 grade R learners and approximately 20,000 learners in public special needs education schools. Further, over the last 5 years, as we've seen in the APP, the Western Cape received 112,156 learners from other provinces. This puts a clear strain on the resources of the Western Cape Education Department. And of the 20,165 first-time learner enrollments from outside the Western Cape that enrolled with the Western Cape Education Department in 2022 alone, 16,077 were learners from the Eastern Cape province. So I am happy to see that when the Mpumalanga and the Eastern Cape provinces do not spend the national education infrastructure money that they are getting, that the national department redirects this money to provinces like Gauteng and the Western Cape. And in this regard, I don't take kindly to being told that I'm spreading misinformation information. I'm going to read from the ATC of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament as published, which is a House document. The ATC 32 of Friday, 24 March 2023, on page 68. It says committee reports. The report of the Standing Committee on Education on vote 5 education. I'm quoting Chairperson Speaker in the schedule to the Western Cape Additional Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2022-23 financial year B1 2023 dated 17 March 2023 as follows. The Standing Committee on Education, having deliberated on the subject of Vote 5 education in the schedule to the Western Cape Additional Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2022-2023 financial year B1 2023, referred to the committee in terms of Standing Rule 188, reports that it supports the vote. Chairperson, Speaker, I'm not done. In accordance with Standing Rule 90, the African National Congress expressed its minority view to not support
Honourable Member, please take your seat. Honourable Deputy Chief Whip, is that a point of order?
Yes, it's a point of order. The Honourable Member continues to mislead the House.
Why?
Because she's quoting information, that's fine. But what I spoke about was the fact that she says that we do not support the building of classrooms. We confirmed that we didn't support the vote. What does that got to do with her going on to mislead?
Honourable side.
Stop with the theatrics. Maybe then she'll be made the Chief Whip. Unfortunately, this won't make her the Chief Whip.
Honourable side, I allowed you an opportunity to raise your... Honourable members, I've allowed you an opportunity to raise your point of order. Raising your point of order doesn't give you the opportunity to justify your point of order. Honourable. Okay. Honourable members, please settle down. Honourable side, you had an opportunity. It's now Honourable Bartman's opportunity. Honourable Bartman, you may continue.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I just want to say that if I had to make a member statement today that I support or not support something, it does not mean that I supported or not supported a particular vote. You must report whether you support or not support a particular vote. And I'm not going to go into the second report of local government because we're not dealing with local government now. But in the second report of the local government votes 14, local government to the schedule of the Western Cape Additional Adjustments Appropriation Bill, the 89 million rand of local government, the ANC recorded expressed its minority view that it does not support the vote. And people do not need to believe me, Speaker. They can go read page 68 of the ATC 32 that was published on Friday, 24 March 2023, not by me, by the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. They do not need to believe me. They can go read for themselves.
Order.
Speaker.
Settle down, members. Order. Order.
Further, Speaker, I just want to say that it was indicated that apparently the Western Cape Education Department didn't spend all of their money in education infrastructure last year, which is not true. The Education Department last year spent 100% of its education infrastructure budget. So I just want that to be noted on the record. And I happen to also have made a member statement previously in the House about that. So, but as a province, the financial year is not over. As a province, we do not shy away from difficult tasks. And while it is not a particular matter that's usually dealt with in education, I would like to speak quickly about the Provincial Equitable Share Formula, which is calculated according to a formula by National Treasury. In terms of this particular formula, obviously 48% of the formula in different provinces is dealing with education statistics. So when you see the Provincial Equitable Share Formula increase, it was not because the National Treasury changed the formula. It was because they inserted new data on the following: the mid-year population estimates 2022 age cohorts 5 to 17, that was new data. It was not a change of the formula. It was 2022 preliminary data on Lurid school enrollment for grade R to grade 12. It was also not a change in the formula. It was new data. And despite the Budget Committee having asked again and again and again for special needs education to be included into the formula, it has still not been reviewed in this regard. So I'm not going to, you don't need to believe me that the ANC objected against the 115 million. It is in the ATC. You can even go check the minutes of the House of the additional adjustment budget. But if people do not need to believe me, they can go read for themselves, because here in the Democratic Alliance in the Western Cape, leaders are readers. In 2022, Speaker, a total of 920,634 learners enrolled for the National Senior Certificate examinations in South Africa. The largest class to date to sit for the grade 12 NSC examination since its inception in 2008. The Western Cape has managed to increase its national senior certificate matric pass rate even further to pre-pandemic levels, achieving an 81.4% pass rate in 2022, which is a steady improvement from the previous year, especially given that we had COVID for almost 2 years. So this is welcome to Minister Manie's announcement of the unprecedented 399 million rand to address learning losses, which will include the academic support of 18,000 learners, and specifically the mathematics intervention that the Minister announced for 4,000 grade 10 learners. Speaker, one of my favorite philosophers actually is Dr. Seuss. And Dr. Seuss actually said, the more you read, the more things you will know. The more you learn, the more places you will go. And it is so important thus that we address the COVID learning losses. And I hope that members will also take the words of one of my favorite philosophers into account when they go through the overview and the full budget and the infrastructure budget, which was tabled in this House by Minister Winger, the Minister of Finance and Economic Opportunities. This budget sees the Education Department move forward. It paints a portrait of a department that takes its challenges in its stride. It's a department that takes action. And this is just the start. The 2023-2024 financial year will see the Western Cape government boost education spending by an unprecedented 1.47 billion rand, resulting in a budget that features massive infrastructure investments and exciting new teacher training initiatives. And the committee has heard oversight briefing on this also previously, that over 1,000 posts are coming in this regard. The budget includes a nearly 3 billion rand investment into infrastructure, which will be used to build new classrooms and enhance existing ones. Speaker, I note that the EFF mentioned about the maintenance of schools and that maintenance is not happening, but there is actually a maintenance roster, and the maintenance roster is per year. Now, I don't know which particular school it is because the member didn't mention it, but perhaps if either to the minister they could send the school information, or even through the committee, we could actually check where on the years and in the maintenance roster the school lies. And if the school is not, if the school requires heavy maintenance, we must have a conversation with the minister and the department as to where on the roster they lie particularly. The department, Speaker, will continue the highly successful Rapid Build program with 350 million rand to be spent on this initiative. To date, the Rapid Build program had already built more than 740 classrooms in just a few short months. And the continuation of this program demonstrates the Western Cape government's clear commitment to ensuring that every single learner receives quality education regarding of circumstance. And Speaker, I just want it to be noted that this department last year indicated that they will go negotiate with the construction industry to build through the December holidays. And if anyone has ever wanted to build anything through the Christmas or the festive season holiday, you will know that the construction industry closes at a certain time. Not only did they build through the holidays, the construction industry assisted the education department on even building on Saturdays and Sundays. And it's because of that that the Saxon Seer Junior Hoërskool was built within 65 days. It is unheard of. It is unheard of. Geagte Speaker, ek wil u graag vertel van die staande komitee van onderwys se oorsigbesoek na Saxon Seer Junior Hoërskool. As gevolg van die gesamentlike poging van amptenare, kontrakteurs, belanghebbendes, kon Saxon Seer Junior Hoërskool 'n uitbreiding van die hoërskool meer graad 8 en 9 leerders akkommodeer. Die klaskamers was binne 75 dae gebou en binne haar begroting van 40 miljoen en vir ongeveer 405 ekstra leerders te akkommodeer. Ons was daar, die skoolhoof was daar, die school governing body was daar, hulle het dit geverwelkom. Toe ons hulle gevra het van die ongeplaaste leerders, het hulle vir ons nou gesê dat dit nou bygedra het dat daar nog geen ongeplaaste leerders in ons land is. And I just want to say that the statistics on unplaced learners that were quoted was from February, but I clearly remember from the 17 March Budget Committee meeting that the minister indicated that on that day, the unplaced learners was 91. Now, Speaker, we have 1.1 million learners in the Western Cape. In February, we had 98% placed learners, and in March 17th, on that Budget Committee date, we had 91 unplaced learners with 1.1 million. So 99% of learners on that day was placed. And I would like to encourage members, if you know of someone who's unplaced, please let the department know. Let the department know so we can place that learner, because learners in this province has a right to be placed. They have a right to quality education, but we can't place someone who does not let the department or any of the officials know. Let us know. We keep a register even in the committee, where as we get the information from people and we send it to the department so we can follow up on each and every complaint or query that we get. And our procedure officer is amazing with following up on queries that we send to the minister and to the Department of Education. And I thank her. I'm actually thanking her later as well, but I want to thank her now in this regard as well. In terms of the technical matters on online, we've received technical complaints and queries about the online system, and we've sent them through to the department. I'm not sure if members from the opposition have sent them to the department or to the minister, but every single one I've sent in personally have been dealt with. Every single one. And I make sure that the procedural officer knows about it, so it goes onto the roster, so that we can know whether or not the department and the minister are following up on the respective complaints and queries. Speaker, it goes without saying that I'm incredibly excited to see this particular rapid build initiative, and that we're going to continue with building schools. And I'm pleased at the announcement thus at the new 21 new and replacement schools and the additional 289 classrooms to be built. The department unifies clearly behind the common goal of getting every single child, even those who have applied late, into a classroom, into education. In addition to building new schools and classrooms, the department will also work to improve conditions within schools. And I welcome thus the minister's announcement of the 68 million rand to improve support for learners with autism spectrum disorders, as well as the construction of 2 new schools for special needs learners, an additional 28 classrooms for learners with special needs. As a learner whose doctor wanted to take her out of school and I refused, it's a matter that's a little bit close to my heart. In 2023-2024, it will see the department spend 65 million rand on school feeding schemes to ensure that the province's school children are well fed and ready to learn. This represents a key aspect within the Western Cape government's mission to lift our people out of poverty through education. We are feeding more than 50% of learners in this province in education. More than 50%. We have 1.1 million learners in this province, Speaker. We are feeding more than 50%. They receive breakfast, they receive lunch. It is geared towards quintile 4 and 5 schools, because that is the criteria that we receive from national in terms of the National Schools Nutrition Program. But the Western Cape Department has also put its own money in terms of feeding and nutrition, so that we are able to feed children even in schools that aren't quintile 4 and 5, because the quintiles don't always make provision for everyone who needs to be fed, everyone who is vulnerable in the respective schools. There's been a concern that our ability to feed our learners may be jeopardized due to even the increase in food and petrol prices, Speaker. That is what we heard, that we're getting a certain amount of money, but does it deal with the fact that the food prices are increasing? Minister of Agriculture is sitting in front of me. You will know that it's the food prices have increased, the petrol prices have increased. So the cost input that we have to pay for in the National School Nutrition Program have increased, and I will get to the respective funding in that regard soon. As a province, we are thus adding 61 million rand, our own money, to supplement the national school nutrition program from our own provincial revenue funds. In order to further supplement it, last year, the WC also facilitated the establishment of 571 food gardens in school and appointed 146 gardeners to be able to ensure that they are sustained. Because it also doesn't help you have a school garden, but you don't actually have someone to look after it, or you don't assist in making sure that the school is able to look after it. You can't teach a hungry child. And this department in education continues to pull out all the stops to ensure that every learner can focus entirely on their education rather than where they're going to source their next meal from. 54 million rand will be spent on school resource officers over the MTEF period to assist with safety in schools. But Speaker, I just need to raise something. I'm very proud that the Education Department is going to add 18 school resource officers plus another 18 plus another 18, bringing it over 80 school resource officers. But I actually want to tell you something. We should not have to put more than 50 million rand into our budget to make sure that learners are safe when we have section 205 of the National Constitution dealing with the police service. And I want to quote the Constitution, section 205, subsection 3, as to what the South African Police Service is supposed to do. The objects of the police service, Minister, I hope you're listening to me as well, are to prevent, combat, and investigate crime. I want to repeat, Speaker, the objects of the police service, the National Constitution, are to prevent, combat, and investigate crime, to maintain public order, to protect and secure the inhabitants of the Republic and their property, and to uphold and enforce the law.
Honourable Bartman, please take your seat. Order members, there's a member on the hybrid system. Honourable Mvimbi, is that a point of order?
Yes, Honourable Speaker, can the member take a question?
Please let me just pose the request to the member. Member, are you prepared to take a question?
Unless the member is asking whether he can
No,
go to
are you
coffee,
going to take a prepared? Honourable members, are you prepared to take a question? Yes or no? Are you prepared to take a question?
Not at this time.
Thank you very much. Honourable Mvimbi, the member's not prepared to take a question.
Speaker, I'm not sure if everyone on the virtual platform heard me reading out section 205.
Honourable Bartman, please take your seat. There's another point of order, I would imagine. Honourable Syed.
Chair, the Honourable Premier is disturbing the Honourable Bartman. She's not able to speak. He's heckling across the floor. Can you just bring some order, please?
Can I ask members on both my right and left hand side? There is a member on the floor. Please do not drown out the speaker. Allow the speaker an opportunity to make a presentation. Everyone that was part of this debate had that opportunity. So, Honourable Bartman, I will protect you and ensure that you have the same privilege to speak.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, I'm not sure if everyone heard me read out section 205, subsection 3, because the Deputy Chief from the Opposition indicated that people couldn't necessarily hear me. So I'm just going to repeat the section dealing with the powers of the police service in South Africa. The objects of the police service are to prevent, combat, and investigate crime, to maintain public order, Minister, to protect
Honourable Bartman, speak to me.
And to secure the inhabitants, through you, Speaker, to the Premier, to protect and to secure the inhabitants of the Republic and their property, and to uphold and enforce the law. That is the objects of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. Leaders are readers, Speaker. Further, in order to deal with the impact of load shedding on education, the department will spend 40 million rand on energy efficient LED lighting, which will lower energy bills in schools. And Speaker, I just want to actually say that in the Clutersville Primary School, there was a collaboration between Stellenbosch University, the WCED, and the Green X startup, and that was a pilot. It was a collaboration. And when they implemented their solar PV, they are able now to reduce the electricity bill by almost 20,000 rand a year. It is a 7.5 kilowatt system, if I'm not mistaken, and it reduces up to 13 tons of carbon emissions a year. And In addition to this, Speaker, schools are now being identified for consideration for solar PV technologies, which will mitigate load sheddings in this particular year. 10 schools we've heard from the Minister now today. And the installation of these systems will generate up to 60 kilowatts, depending on the size of the school and in the size of the installation. I know, Speaker, that we often hear a lot from the opposition as to how many kilowatts and megawatts go into the grid. So I just want to remind the members that now when I say 60 kilowatts in this particular program, in this particular department, that I now know how many kilowatts and megawatts will go into the grid from this particular one. And that way, throughout the departments, throughout the Western Cape government, we must ask, okay, how many from the Department of Infrastructure with the solar PV that they're putting up on the buildings? Because those kilowatts don't just disappear, Speaker. They don't just go up in the air. They go into the grid. Whether it is now the municipal grid or the ESCOM grid, but it helps to mitigate load shedding. And in this regard, the Western Cape Education Department is committed to doing everything it can to help make the Western Cape become the first load shedding free province in South Africa. Speaker, while we are adding more than R1 billion from our own provincial revenue fund to bolster the education vote, I'm going to repeat this. We are spending more than R1 billion from our own provincial revenue fund to bolster the education vote. The national conditional grants that opposition members are speaking about are expected to decrease in totality in 2023 by 26.7 million rand in this vote, or 1.33% from the previous MTEF estimates. So I actually want to go through the conditional grants quickly, Speaker. We are receiving 8 conditional grant funding amounts. And so for those people who may be watching online from home, there is a difference between equitable share and conditional grants. Equitable share, we have our formula, they send money, and the Western Cape province has to decide what it has to do with this money. Conditional grants, you can only use what your respective national department has given the respective money for. So the grants that we are getting is the education infrastructure grant, the math, science and technology grant, the early childhood development grant, the HIV and AIDS grant, the learners with profound disabilities grant, national school nutrition program grant, social sector EPWP incentive grant, and expanded public works program integrated grant. Of these 8, so ons gaan nou met getalle gebruik. Ons gaan nou getalle. So of these 8, we are seeing a reduction or an under-inflation increase in 6 of them. Now, I'm not sure if all of the members who are permanent on education also sit on budget. I always welcome extra members in budget, because in budget, we are on a mission, Speaker, to make finance fun again. We are having fun-filled finance festivities in the budget committee. So it is important that we understand the difference between real and nominal increases, the differences between when the budget increases in the rand and under-inflation increases. So I would like to go through the respective amounts. In this particular vote, the education infrastructure grant, I can find it on page 177 of the budget book. Again, Speaker, you do not need to believe me. This budget book was tabled in the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. You can go to page 177. So let's go. A 4.55% decrease in the education infrastructure grant from the previous MTEF. Maths, science and technology grant, 19.37% decrease from the previous estimate. Learners with profound intellectual disabilities grant, 16.66% decrease from the previous MTEF estimate. In the HIV and AIDS grant, we are receiving a 1.4 increase in terms of percentages, and in the early childhood development grant, we are receiving a 4.39% increase. In the social sector EPWP incentive grant, we're receiving 2.44% increases. But Speaker, I'm not sure if other people know, but these are all below the current inflation percentages, which in reality presents a budget cut. If someone tells you that inflation is 6 or 10 or 12 or 16%, but they only increase your budget or your salary by 2 or 4, then actually what is happening is you're actually making less money. That's how money works in the country. That's how money works everywhere, Speaker. Speaker, the ANC seems to believe that the taxes that we collect in this country is theirs. They seem to believe it is their money. It is not their money, Speaker. It is the people's money. It is the people's money of South Africa. And the people's money of South Africa must be spent on the people. And like my colleague, the chairperson, Isaac Sileko, said a few days ago,
Honourable Bartman, please take your seat. Honourable Klaas, is that a point of order?
It's not a point of order. It's just people who are disturbing me. I'm listening very well. They are busy interjection.
Okay.
Please sit down.
I will, Honorable Class, I will listen very carefully to see if your rights are being hampered on. But can I again once appeal to the members that please, there is members that wants to listen to the response by the member on the floor. So please allow the member to continue to do so.
Speaker, I want to speak about something my colleague Chairperson Selekos actually said this past week, and he spoke about what do you do when you're in an emotionally abusive relationship, and when you have to now leave this boyfriend and when you have to leave this girlfriend, and I want to say, Speaker, we must leave the toxic relationships we are in. And it's not easy. It's not easy to leave the toxic relationships we're in. And in this sense, what I do want to tell the residents of the Western Cape, Speaker, is maybe they will choose us and maybe they don't. But it's not going to matter if we choose ourselves. We, as the people of the Western Cape, must choose to become load shedding free. We, as the people of the Western Cape, must choose to live in a safer province. We, the people of the Western Cape, must choose to band together to make sure that there's quality education for every learner, in every classroom, in every single school in our province. It is because if we, whether you're a resident, if you're an MPO, your NGO, your mom, your dad, doesn't matter who you are, we must come together so that we ourselves can make it happen. Because it's not their money, Speaker. It is the people's money of South Africa. And we are not going to find it in couches. Speaker, I have no doubt that there will be usual naysayers who criticize this budget. And it is true that there will never be the resources to fund every initiative we would like. But this budget moves us forward in a very real and meaningful way, and crucially in a way that national government has long since given up on. And John F. Kennedy actually said, shame he's not as powerful in my heart as my favorite philosopher, Dr. Seuss, but I do love some of his quotes. And he said, there are risks and costs to action, but they are far less than the long-range risks of comfortable inaction, quote closed. Our government at the national level has sunk into malaise of inaction and apathy, Speaker, comfortable in their mansions and blue light convoys. Make no mistake, they will be rudely awoken next year. And our people cannot wait until then. While people have become numb in South Africa due to the inefficiency and corruption of national government, we can see this through the R1 trillion that was lost due to corruption in the Zondo Commission. I even heard members of the National Executive who were implicated in the Zondo Commission reports being mentioned in this House, and we must follow their lead. We will not. We will not. We will not follow the lead of people who are being alleged of corruption in the Zondo Commission report. And the national government, people of the Western Cape, expect more from the provincial government because they should and they deserve it. We deserve better, Speaker, from what we are getting in terms of national money. Ons verdien beter. This budget in the Western Cape in the Education Department represents the next steps in bringing services to our people, bridging the gaps between the haves and the have-not, and building a brighter future for our province. And after next year's election, Speaker, our country as well. The DA supports this budget. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Baartman. I now see the Honourable Minister, Minister Mania.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'd like to begin by thanking the Honourable Deirdre Baartman for her comprehensive and indeed energetic input into this debate. I can only conclude that in the light of what she said, she probably had green eggs and ham for lunch. Now, Honourable Speaker, allow me to then respond to some of the inputs by honourable members, beginning with my friend, the Honourable Khalid Sayed. Now, Speaker, you'll be aware in past debates that I've raised concerns about the honourable member's diligence and application and his ability to do his homework. Now, Honourable Speaker, the Honourable Member says that education is an apex priority and that conditional grants are increasing. But just a cursory glance at the Blue Book, our 2023 estimates of provincial revenue and expenditure tell, as the Honourable Deirdre Bartman has alluded to, a different story. In fact, conditional grants decrease overall by 1.33%.
Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Honourable Klaas, is that a point of order?
Yes, it's a point of order.
What's your point of order?
Yeah, the point of order in chapter 7.
Honourable Klaas, please speak to me.
Okay. Number 42. Order must be maintained by the presiding office. So here there's no order you maintain. Why? He was directly talked to Mrs. Bachmann. He must not talk directly to Mrs. Bachmann.
Okay, I'll remind the Honourable Minister. Minister, please, when you address the Honourable Bartman, can you please address the Honourable Bartman through the chair? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I have to say that the Honourable Klaas certainly wins the prize when it comes to the rules of the most improved students. Now, if we could get back to the Honourable Khalid Sayed's claims, conditional grants are going down, but are going up. But in fact, conditional grants decrease overall by 1.33%. The infrastructure grant, Speaker, decreases by 4.55%. And most shamefully, the grant for learners with profound intellectual disabilities decreases by 16.66%. Now, Honourable Speaker, what are the implications of that? The implications are that the provincial government and the provincial treasury have to lean in, which, to their credit, they did in this financial year. And we now will be contributing much more than national government, for example, to the National School Nutrition Program grant. We will be contributing this financial year 61.4 million, and we will be contributing 67 million to learners, of course, with profound intellectual difficulties. Honourable Speaker, the Honourable Member claims that when it comes to admissions, there is a crisis. Now, we are under significant pressure, but there is no crisis. We have placed 99.6% of our grade 1s and grade 8s who on-time applications, and 98.98% of our grade 1 and grade 8s who applied late. And we now have less than 45 learners requiring placement, and these are extremely late applications and applications where we are struggling to contact parents. But I can give the Honourable Member the assurance that we will work hard, and we are committed to placing every single learner in the Western Cape. On admissions 2024, yes, there have been some niggles with the system, but the system is a vast improvement on last year. We have experienced no downtime, and indeed we have processed now over 83,000 unique applications for the 2024 school year. Honourable Speaker, that then brings me to the Honourable Kasim from the EFF. Now, it's always difficult for me to take a lecture from the EFF on the lack of ability of children to get to school, when indeed it is the EFF just recently that threatened to shut down schools as part of their national shutdown. the most recent shutdown of schools was embarrassingly arranged on a school holiday. On a school holiday declared a year before. Now, Honourable Speaker, what conclusion must we draw? We can only conclude that when it comes to Julius Malema and the high command of the EFF, which the Honourable Member serves, that they are struggling to read school timetables. And it also suggests that the high command have experienced significant learning losses and could possibly benefit from a place on our back to school, back on track program here in the Western Cape.
Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Honourable members, I'm going to allow you an opportunity if you have a point of order, because this is now the fifth question in the same debate. So, is there a point of order, Honourable Klaas?
It's a point of question.
There is no such thing as a point of question. I'm going to ask the Minister. I'm not going to ask the Minister if he wants to take a question, because the Minister is now responding. So you could have had an opportunity in the debate to pose those questions.
But he posed this point while he was on the podium.
Honourable Minister Meyer, you also had a point of order.
Honourable Chair, it's a point of privilege.
During
this debate today, and this is direct relation to the Minister of Education in response to the Honourable Member Klaas. During a debate earlier today, I asked exactly the same question that emanated from a pretext of Minister Meyer, and the answer that I got from Honourable Member Klaas was that he was going to put it to me in writing. The question that I now have for him, when will it happen? Which state?
No, Honourable Minister Meyer, that's not a point of order or point of privilege, and I'm actually going to not allow any further questions being posed to the Minister or requested to be posed to the Minister in this debate. Minister Meyer.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Which brings me to the Honourable Furlong Christians. Let me thank him for supporting the vote and thank him for the thumbs up and his recognition of the incredibly hard work and dedication of the Western Cape Education Department. Then in closing, Honourable Speaker, I'd like to circle back to the Honourable Khalid Sayed's original point. Now, he made mention of his guests, the education activists, and I'm sure that they have been shocked, profoundly shocked by what they have heard today, that their champion, the Honourable Khalid Sayed, opposed an additional allocation of 115 million rand, 115 million rand for infrastructure, which would expand access to schools, allow us to build schools, and allow us to extend opportunities to young people in the Western Cape. Now let's focus, Honourable Speaker, on this shambles, because, and let me take you through it. The national government supports an additional allocation of 115 million rand for infrastructure in the Western Cape. Honourable Khalid Sayed in committee opposes the additional allocation of 115 million for infrastructure. Now it gets interesting.
Honourable Minister, I'm not going to allow any questions. Is that a point of
Chair,
order?
This is a point of order. The Minister is misleading the House. I did not, and the committee was in this venue, and I even said it in my speech. I did not oppose the additional allocation of 115 million. I opposed the budget, not the allocation of the money. Because there's aspects in the budget that I did not agree with. And I don't want to explain myself again, but I'm sure the public can see. The public can see that the DA is indeed the dishonest alliance.
Honourable Syed. Honourable Side, Honourable Side, you rose on a point of order saying that the minister is misleading the House. The minister, I cannot adjudicate on the facts either from your side or from the minister's side. So what I will do is I will come back to the House and I will look at committee reports and I will look at all facts in front of me and I will officially rule. But for now, the minister will continue.
Thank you. Now, Honourable Speaker.
Honourable members, now please settle down. The minister's on the floor.
Now, Honourable Speaker, the honourable member is obviously very sensitive about this matter. I understand it. It's very embarrassing, and it's really embarrassing with education activists as your guest. I'm sure I should. I'm very empathetic. I'm very empathetic to the member. But if indeed he's claimed that I don't, the ATC on the 24th of March 2003, which in respect of Vote 5 and the additional adjustments appropriation budget says this: the African National Congress expressed its minority view not to support the vote. Oh. But, Honourable Speaker, you will obviously
order, members.
You will obviously look into this matter.
Yes, I will look into the matter. Minister, can you speak to me?
But
Minister, can you speak
yes.
to the chair?
Thank you. Now,
Order, members on my left-hand side.
I said, Honourable Speaker, it was at the moment that the Honourable Khalid Sayed opposed the additional allocation of 115 million rand. It's at that point that it gets interesting. Because in the budget debate, the Honourable Nomi Nkandla, possibly a little bit more diligent, a little bit more mature, stood up and supported the additional allocation of 115 million rand for infrastructure, only for her own members then to vote against the same vote. Now, what does this tell us? It's a symbol of the division within the ANC between the province and national government. It's a symbol of the decay of the ANC, and it is a symbol of the ultimate death of the ANC here in the Western Cape. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister Mainier. That concludes the. Is that a point of order?
Yes, sorry, Honourable Speaker, I was actually raising a point of privilege, and if I may address you.
Yes, you may address me.
I'm just a bit concerned that the Honourable Member brought something that was not brought by a substantive motion. I'm worried every time somebody says something in a debate, you will have to go to an ATC, which is not fair on you. So the Honourable Member must bring a substantive motion if he feels the Honourable Member wasn't speaking the truth. But a normal point of order, we've got 100 ATCs. We can't have the Speaker going to all the ATCs every time he disagrees with something.
Thank you very much. I have ruled on the matter and I will come back to the House after I've looked at the facts. I will thank you very much, Honourable Mainier, for the debate. That concludes the debate on that vote. We will now move on to the next the Secretary will then read the next order of the day.
Ingxoxo-mpikiswano ngomthetho oyilwayo ongohlahlo lwabiwo-mali lwesebe lezempilo eNtshona Koloni.
Thank you very much. Minister, before I recognize you, I'm going to give a minute or two in case there is members of the department.
I think they were here earlier, so I'm not sure whether now they're still here or they're online.
All right. Are you happy to continue?
Yeah.
All right. Minister Mbombo.
Speaker, Deputy Speaker, Premier, Cabinet Ministers, the Leader of the Opposition, members of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament, departmental officials, some of them online, the guests, and most importantly, the residents of the Western Cape. Speaker, today I have the honor to table the 2023-2024 budget of the Western Cape, Department of Health and Wellness, which amounts to 28.8 billion, which equates to an overall reduction of about 280.9 million, or a decrease of 0.97 from the 2022-2023 financial year budget. I just want to thank the communities that represented in the metro when we were tabling this budget unto them so that they could be able to share their views. We took their views in consideration, specifically around the reduction of the budget this year. While there have been notable reduction in both our provincial equitable share allocation and the total conditional grants awarded to us by the national government, we are grateful for the substantial allocation of 1.078 billion from the Provincial Revenue Fund. In total, Speaker, this is a 421.87 increase from the 2022-23 that is coming from the provincial envelope. As a department, we are fortunate to have a caring provincial government that understands the needs of health and wellness. It has been more than 35 months since we first identified COVID-19 in our province. Even though it has been a long journey since March 2020, I can confidently say that we are in complete control of this pandemic. COVID now belongs in our history books, as all COVID interventions are now officially incorporated into the department's baseline services. But of course, we are on the lookout for resurgence. But we have to focus on other illnesses, for example, TB, where we have committed 28 million for this year. As we progress further into 2023, we are now faced with a different reality, one that is now overshadowed by domestic and international turmoil. While South Africa has more immediate concerns, and is something I will want to outline later, Speaker, one cannot forego the constrained supply chain issues that originated from COVID-19 and more recently, the Ukraine conflict. This, however, is not the first time, some of you know, Ukraine has been a focal point of the world. Almost 150 years ago, the Crimean War brought multiple countries into the fold and plunged innocent civilians' lives into disarray. However, it also gave rise to a person who would go on to transform patient care and form the foundations of modern nursing. Among the soldiers, she was labeled as the lady with a lamp, but the world knows her as Florence Nightingale. Speaker, with South Africa's public health system in crisis, we have been the ones who have stood firm, innovated, and provided the basis for good governance. We are the ones holding the lamp for not only the residents of the Western Cape, but also for all the South Africans. In my 8th budget speech, Speaker, I presented the concept of Vulimpilo and reflected on the achievements in the system for the 7 years preceding it. This is where I introduced the name change of the department and is a direct consequence of our vision found in the Healthcare 2030 plan. As before, I will begin my 9th budget speech by firstly reflecting on the delivery of my promises for the current financial year and the active shift from that of health to the health and wellness. Speaker, the department is wholly committed to its plans for a comprehensive service redesign. Since last year, we have had a variety of indabas with public and private stakeholders, which will allow us to form foundations for greater partnership moving forward. The department this week, actually for the past 2 days, including today, they are also engaged with another health indaba. Between 2020 and 2023, the department employed a total of 2,342 individuals to assist with the service demands of COVID-19. Out of these professionals, more than 1,000 will be remaining in our employ, because I have to emphasize this, Speaker, because we keep on being accused of letting people go, all the people go. Of those who will be leaving us, 829 have left on their own accord. 471 have completed their contractual appointments, and 694 have been served with the termination notices. Despite the pandemic funding ending and the current budget shortfall we are facing, our department has essentially been able to integrate its COVID-19 workforce into equitable share baseline. We're also proud, Speaker, to announce that we have allocated 127.6 million to expand our transitional care capacity, specifically in relation to the Brackengate and Sonsral hospitals, which used to be the COVID hospital. This will go a long way in alleviating the pressures in our acute hospital platform, specifically for the Khayelitsha District Hospital, the Mitchells Plain Hospital, and others like PAL. Speaker, on the built environment, health infrastructure remains our top priority as it is our main vehicle of service delivery. Over the next 3 years, the department will invest about 2.5 billion on maintenance and infrastructure. And this is about also a 10% of increase for this year alone. In addition to that, Speaker, the 30 million that we are committing to uplift the face of our health facility is also crucial. While yesterday my colleague, Minister Simas, has highlighted a number of projects in health in his speech yesterday, I would like also to reiterate that what we have successfully completed since April last year, the Philipsdorp Clinic, refurbishment of Gansbaai Clinic, the new day clinic in Laingsburg. Thank you, Mayor Mackenzie, for bragging about Laingsburg Clinic, the Sandy Point Satellite Clinic, 2 EMS stations in Maritzburg and Didorens, the Avian Park Clinic. Through the dedicated fundraising, the Red Cross War Memorial Children's Hospital opened also a new EC center, the Barsach Ward in Nelsport, the Gouda Clinic, the Steenberghof Satellite Clinic, the first phase of the Victoria Hospital Imaging Center. I can add as many, and also I just want to add Lady Smith Clinic is also upcoming. Of course, Speaker, I have to mention before the members actually ask the question. In relation to the construction of the Clapfontein Regional Hospital, we are making a steady progress as the tender was awarded September last year for multidisciplinary professional service providers. Additionally, Speaker, a town planner has been appointed to begin with the land application processes pertaining to the rezoning and urban consolidation. Currently, the appointment of sub-consultants and other sub-specialists are underway. The public-private partnership at the Tygerberg Hospital has gathered speed with its development. The feasibility study, which commenced a few years ago, has been completed, and the consultation with all relevant stakeholders, which happened last year, also have been approved through the National Treasury. Speaker, in total, there are about 285 projects in our pipeline, which will further capacitate our services as a department. While we thank the Department of Infrastructure for being the implementing agent all of these years, we are excited for the opportunities that await for us with the removal of Chapter 16B of the Provincial Treasury Instructions in doing the delivery and maintenance of infrastructure. Some will now be our responsibility. We as health will no longer just be a client and a bystander. By being the custodians and implementers of our points of service, we will be able to be very active partner in delivering the infrastructure more efficiently and on time. Speaker, Violence Prevention Unit, if you recall, last year we made also that announcement. The safety plan has been debated many times in this House, and despite our different views on policy, we all agree that a whole of government and all of society approach is essential to reducing violence in our communities. As the Department of Health and Wellness, we understand our role in this regard and are committed to doing our part. What we have already done, Speaker, a Violence Prevention Unit, the DPSA microstructure has been approved. It means now we could be able to go ahead. 6.2 million has been allocated to increase the capacity of this unit. The area-based teams have been established in the hotspot areas in partnership with other departments. I think my colleague from the police oversight, will talk more around that. A public-facing dashboard has been developed in order to give communities, law enforcement agencies, the NPOs, and everyone the data indicating the burden of trauma in localized geographic areas. Sometime media, the Premier, and also all others who are transversally participating in this will be able to make such an announcement. Speaker, mental health. I mentioned mental health last year, where I committed additional 30 million in order to bolster our mental health services. And we've seen positive results, but it's not enough. To truly make more headway, we truly need a whole system response, a whole of society response, and we have been doing just that. For example, we have mental health steering committee of all the relevant HODs. It's no longer a health department matter. All other departments are involved. In Klipfontein and Witzenberg, for example, we are busy with a mapping exercise to map all mental health services, especially in regard to the issues of the older person's mental health. Our psychogeriatric interventions, which is the mental health of the seniors, have proven successful at Alexandra and Stegland Psychiatry Hospitals, where we're currently piloting. This year alone, for mental health, we are committing 72.4 million, which has been allocated for both the metro and also the rural areas. Speaker, last year I committed 20 million additional funds for the surgical backlogs. Where we are now, we have seen a considerable increase in the backlog of elective surgical procedures. In June last year, actually, we had about a total of 77,000 procedures. Due to dedicated management and staff, our hospitals have made great progress in reducing those backlogs of 77,000, and now we are around about sitting with about 21,000, which is a 70% reduction in regard to the awaiting procedures. This also has been aided by our Da Vinci surgical robots at Grooteskier and Tygerberg hospitals. Between their procurement at the end of Feb, 260 surgeries have already taken place. These robotics allow for quicker recovery periods and thus alleviate bed occupancies where they are being used. We look forward to even greater progress being made in this regard. Speaker, we always talk about what's happening with the City of Cape Town clinics. In 2022, with the City of Cape Town, we made the decision to provincialize joint facilities that were operating in the metro in order to rationalize the clinic network, which will reduce the financial burden and thereby improve the service efficiency. This resulted in the handover of the 9+1, which is 10 facilities. This was crucial in realization of the Provincial Department's Healthcare 2030. Now, Speaker, this year, I'm excited to announce the provincialization of two further facilities in the Atlantis area, which is around July. The Saxon Sea and the Protea Park clinics will be incorporated to provincial health services. And this is not only about the patients in those clinics, but also will improve the burden and service pressures that are currently being experienced at Westphalia Hospital. We need actually to thank the communities for being the voices that lead, where no one gets left behind. Speaker, climate change and all others related to 2023-2024, with us as a department having delivered on our goals and promises, it is important that we lay the groundwork and contextualize the climate we'll be weathering in the year ahead. In total, we have 34,000 permanent employees and thousands more in contract staff working across our 571 service points, which inclusive of the clinics, the hospital, EMS stations, and so forth. This is a lot to fund, let alone to efficiently govern the only government department that is available for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Considering these facts, we need to contextualize the external factors which are becoming increasingly prevalent. The Stats SA does show that with the Western Cape, the immigration is intensifying. As a province, we understand this. We are the home of hope for all South Africans. The Western Cape's population is currently around 7.2 million. in which 5% use public health services, and it is expected to increase by another 800,000 people before the end of the decade. Even though we welcome with open arms anyone who wishes to call the Western Cape their home, the fact that our resource allocation from national lag behind, this actually is of concern because money doesn't follow the people. Now, it brings me on the issue of the priorities related to the social determinants of health, because we cannot be able to do it all by ourselves. As we all know, the well-being of any person is not solely dependent on the services, its health system. Only 20% actually of the drivers of health are clinical and require clinical care. The rest being based off individual behavior, one's physical environment, and socioeconomic environment. It means, Speaker, that what we see mostly as health problems, actually they are the result of a socio-economic, political, social, and commercial ills. And therefore, Speaker, that's why we are saying that health is everybody's business. Everyone should have all their hands on deck in order to be able to save our health system. Speaker, as you can see, the health system in our country is being pulled from both ends, and means that the work we do has gotten even more complex. Health is a first point of contact for many of our residents, and where many of their conditions are as a result of inputs that could have been addressed through other means. Despite the above, the Department of Health and Wellness has had to deal with another constraint in imparting its service delivery. That is, Speaker, load shedding. Actually, it's a blackout. Our facilities and healthcare professionals need a constant and stable supply of energy in order to do their work efficiently. The electronic equipment used on a daily basis cannot be switched on and off like a light switch and runs the risk of being damaged over time. Lives quite literally depend on them. But Speaker, between April 2022 and Feb this year, we have spent more than 100 million on fuel supplies for our facilities. While this number might not seem that significant given the size of our budget, this is the money that could have been used to hire more professionals to treat our patients, to procure more essential supplies, or even to improve infrastructure. Load shedding simply steals from our residents. Load shedding steals from our patients. However, we're not going to sit around and expect the situation to go away by itself. As we speak, Speaker, we are rolling out inverters to 120 of our primary care facilities, surging ahead with our energy-saving targets, and we are installing solar panels onto the roofs of about 15 of our hospitals, thanks to the CT and ESCOM, where we'll be able to exempt additional 5 facilities from load shedding, like Kalbrima, Mitchells Plain, New Somerset, Victoria, and George. We hope in the future that further 14 facilities will be added to the mix. In total, the budget request for these projects is about 136 million for this year alone. There's no new money, Speaker. It means that we have to rob Peter to pay Paul and rob Paul to pay Pauline in order to be able for us to bring our services. Now, the main thing, Speaker, we're coming to the main thing now, Speaker, the budget. As we know, we have heard when I did make a response to the appropriation budget that there is no more COVID money that we used to have in the previous years. The provincial equitable share formula review has enabled the policy shift where Western Cape and Gauteng, the two ones who are urbanized, that they end up having a reduction in the PES and also on the conditional grants. Also, Speaker, the issue related, the insult further is an issue of the real inflation that is significantly has been higher than the normal inflation in terms of how this budget is based. The reality, Speaker, is about that fiscal cliff that we have been warning about is actually here and real. And when you look at it, there are no prospects of thinking that there will be some kind of a solution anyway. We are in the fiscal cliff. The case is the issue of the health sector is where things now should focus on. For the 2023-24 financial year budget, which I'm presenting, the 28.8 billion is going to be appropriated and structured according to the 8 budget programs, of which we have managed to divide them according to this, which was the leaflet that we provided to the communities. So already the anti-SARAs, they've got this, and they've got all the understanding in terms of what we are dealing with. So all these 8 programs where the budget is divided is as they are accordingly, Speaker. So this is a budget of resilience despite the odds which face it. So honorable members and residents of the Western Cape, I hereby table the 2023-24 budget for the Department of Health and Wellness. Let us all support this. We can be able to push forward for the quality health services. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable MEC. I recognize the ANC. Honourable Windvogel.
You want the box? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, honourable members. Thank you, honourable Windvogel. Thank you.
Is die premier klaar?
Please proceed.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. You are Chairperson today. Honourable Chairperson, Premier, Leader of the Opposition, Honourable members, allow me to first thank the Minister for advertising the national government motto, leaving no one behind. Honourable Speaker, Honourable Speaker, thanks, you are back, Speaker. Honourable Speaker, as we open today's budget debate for the Western Cape Government Health and Wellness, allow me to remember that it was this week in 2020, shortly after midnight of Friday, March 27, when President Cyril Ramaphosa announced a 21-day lockdown period. This is a period in our history that we all don't want to remember, as we were faced by the invisible enemy called COVID-19 that caused unspeakable damage on people's lives and livelihoods. Speaker, there is no doubt in my mind that we would have never survived it if it was not for the selfless sacrifice of the healthcare heroes and heroines who put their lives in the line so that you and I could survive to tell the sad story of COVID-19. Honourable Speaker, this week marks exactly 3 years to the day that the first hard lockdown was announced. The saddest story to remember, at least for me, is the fact that the DA government has not spent a single cent of its budget to honor the healthcare heroes, both the living and those that departed. In the previous financial year, the HOD committed to look into the possibility of using the budget to build a wall of remembrance in honor of those healthcare heroes and other frontline workers that lost their lives in the battle against COVID-19. Speaker, the budget makes no provision to honor these healthcare heroes. It is clear the DA government does not appreciate the sacrifice made by these workers and their families. Instead of honoring these healthcare heroes, the DA government is rather retrenching them. When it was not fashionable to work in the Hospital of Hope that were established in the province to deal with COVID-19, 2,342 workers, including doctors and nurses, raised their hands and volunteered to help by allowing themselves to be deployed to these hospitals. Of this number, over 800 have already been retained. Some have been re-employed in other positions within the public healthcare, but the contracts of the remaining 471 healthcare heroes working at Brackengate and Sonsral Hospital will be terminated this coming Friday. What a sad moment. This will go down in the history as the greatest story of betrayal. This is a budget of betrayal. If this is how the DA is prepared to even betray the most loyal and dedicated public servants, then to what length will it betray the people of the province, especially the poor? The only way to bring an end to this betrayal by the DA in the province is to vote them out of power come 2024 general elections. The winds of change are blowing in the province. This we saw recently in Berrydale, Swellen.
Honourable Van Vogel, please take your seat. Honourable Murray, is there a point of order?
Honourable Speaker, I wanted to know if the member would take a question.
Please take your seat, Honourable Murray. Honourable Member, are you prepared to take a question, Honourable Van Vogel?
No, Speaker.
Honourable Murray, the member is not prepared to take a question. You may continue.
Speaker, the wind of change are blowing in the province. This we saw recently in Berrydale, Swellendam, when the people of Ward 2 saw through the DA's dishonesty and unmasked it for what it is, and kicked the party out of Ward 2 because they were tired of betrayal. Honourable Speaker, the healthcare workers, the patients who spend long hours queuing outside clinics for help, as well as the patients who sleep on the floors in chairs in our hospitals for days before they receive assistance, must follow suit and reject the DA. The ANC is concerned with the reduction to the budget of this department, as this will negatively impact on service delivery and further weaken the public healthcare. The department's budget has been reduced from 29 billion in the 2022-23 financial year revised estimate to 28 billion in 2023-2024, a reduction of 280 million. The cuts affected mainly Program 1, Administration, Program 2, District Health Service, and Program 5, Central Hospital Services. The budget allocations for compensation of employees, the goods and services, new infrastructures, assets as well as non-infrastructure expenditure are all decreased. On Program 2, the budget allocation for HIV, AIDS program, nutrition, as well as district hospital are all reduced. This is highly unacceptable, and the ANC cannot support this budget. More concerning to us is the decreased budget for district hospitals, which is reduced by over 300 million. This will have devastating impact on hospitals like Khayelitsha and Mitchell's Plain, which are already struggling and overburdened with increased services pressure, which lead to patients sleeping on the floors for days. When we went to do an oversight visit in these two hospitals last year, which was pushed for by the ANC in the House in order to see the poor state of public health care in the province, we were told in no uncertain terms that the challenge at these hospitals was self-orchestrated by the DA government. In addition to this, the hospital were given extra unfunded mandates and forced to take up more functions of regional hospital, even though they did not receive additional funding and resources for this. This is another textbook example of betrayal. The ANC reiterates its call for either Khayelitsha or Mrs. Plain District Hospital to be converted into a regional hospital where it will receive additional resources and sufficient high care beds, which the MEC and HU do acknowledge as a serious need in these hospitals. The ANC rejects this budget because it has failed to respond to the request for additional funding to address bed and staff shortages for KDH and Mitchell's Plain District Hospital. The amount of 150 million was requested by KDH in the presence of the MEC, who in response to that request said that KDH is a black sheep and will not receive any special treatment. And through this budget, she has cut funding to district hospital by over 300 million. Honourable Speaker, challenges in Khayelitsha, in Mitchells Plain, in the entire Klipfontein region worsened when this DA government took a decision to betray the people by closing down the GF Hospital and lied to them, selling them empty promises of rebuilding it in the following few years. When the Klipfontein Regional Hospital will be rebuilt and commission remains a mystery, the targeted date keeps on moving. At first it was few years, then moved to 2019, then it was 2032, and now it's been moved to 2033. For over 10 years since the DA closed GF Worcester, no concrete steps has been taken to rebuild it. The department has failed to provide a convincing response to why it can't designate one of these hospitals a regional hospital, especially given that the Klipfontein Regional Hospital will only be commissioned in 2033. This is a clear case of incompetence and complacency. The DA must stop lying to the people of Mynenburg and surrounding areas who do not know that there is no GF Worcester. The people call the Heideveld Hospital the new GF Worcester because of dishonest alliance, misinformation. Honourable Speaker, the ANC has over the years put in a strong fight for better and improved emergency transport service, especially in the rural communities where patients continue to wait for over 2 days for ambulances to get to hospitals in Cape Town. We note and welcome the slight increase on the budget for emergency medical services, even though this will not translate to additional ambulances in the province. There is a clear shortage of ambulances and EMS personnel. It is not true that long response times are caused by attacks on EMS personnel. The shortages also contribute to people waiting for hours for ambulances. So while we welcome the increase, we are calling for more funds to be allocated to purchase more ambulances. Speaker, we welcome the commitment made by the HOD to improve the EMS service in the rural regions. The HOD announced that plans are to partner with the Department of Mobility to bring in solutions similar to the Blue Dot and Red Dot initiative to transport patients from rural regions. We hope the taxi industry, which like the Sonsral and Brackengate employees, place the lives of the workers at risk by transporting healthcare workers and patients around the province, will be rewarded for the sacrifices made. In closing, Speaker, the additional allocation for the establishment of the transitional care facilities in Brackengate and Sonsral Hospital is welcome. More of such steps-down facilities are needed in the province to also support hospitals like the KDH and Mitchells Plain and other district hospitals. Despite over 189 million being allocated for this during the current financial year for the Sonsral and Brackengate Hospital, the DA is moving ahead with its plan to terminate contracts of 471 healthcare workers at these hospitals. While we welcome the reprieve of 2 months extension for the workers at Brackengate, our demands are clear that these workers should be absorbed permanently. The Departmental People Management Delegations in terms of Public Service Act 1994 make provision for this and allows the MEC to fill the vacancy without advertising them. The DA must stop betraying the people and the healthcare heroes. In closing, it was expected that the dishonest alliance would want to blame the national government for the budget decrease, while we note in the nearly 270 million reduction in the conditional grant allocation, but this is a nominal reduction in the total budget of 29 million. Also, there's nothing stopping the Premier for augmenting the budget of this department from where he's getting his billions from. We support the MEC and the HOD efforts to get Eskom and the City of Cape Town to expand more hospitals from load shedding.
Order, members.
We support the MEC and the HOD's efforts to get Eskom and the City of Cape Town to exempt more hospitals from load shedding. They must try to get all health facilities exempted. We call for all hospitals to be provided with alternative power sources.
Order, members.
The Premier of the Western Cape caused the load shedding. I thank you, Speaker.
Order, member Van Vogel. Are you done?
I'm saying I'm done.
Okay, can you just...
There was a request from the minister that I must not be long today. She's on her way to the conference. So I comply. I'm just complying.
Okay, honorable members, order members. I trust that that was the end of order members. Settle down, members. Thank you very much, Honorable Van Vogel. I now see Honorable Klaas. Order members.
Western Cape Health
Honorable Klaas, please take your seat.
facilities.
Honorable Klaas, please take your seat. Honorable Klaas, please take your seat. Honorable Klaas. No.
Areas such as Atlantic's resident.
Honorable Klaas. Honorable Klaas. I've been calling you to order 3-4 times already. I stopped your microphone, or I blocked your microphone because there was a point of order. So I want to, the point of order, the minister then sat down. So I wanted to tell you that you must please start over so that it can be on the record, so that we can start your time from the 3 minutes.
Okay. Western Cape health facilities are not run as they should under this DA-led government. And as a result, it is our people who suffer the consequences. In areas such as Atlantic's resident, wake up as early as 5 a.m. in order to stand on long queues at Westfleet Hospital for them to receive primary health care. The only 2 clinics that are available in the area are run by City of Cape Town, and they on after limited general health care, forcing everyone to now turn to the small hospital that is available in the area. Community activities, groups such as the Atlantic Health Organization previously made calls to Health MEC to take over the Section C and Protea Park clinics and upgrade them to offer expanded healthcare in order to ease the pressure to the hospital, which will then cut the long queues. Insourcing. EFF had always called for the insourcing of staff in various health facilities in province, but our calls have often fell on deaf ears. Now, after benefiting from the work of nurses, cleaners, and doctors at intermediate health care facilities such as Brackengate during the height of COVID-19, these governments have now decided that they will not renewing their staff contracts, but will instead replace them with new people. During COVID-19, these workers were praised as heroes and heroines. Now, post of the pandemic, the same department is sneaking behind the backs in offer to replace them with other people during the same work. The DA-led province government does not care about indigent patients in our health facilities. And it certainly also does not care about workers who do their best to offer assistance to the provincial health system. Speaker, we will not support this vote.
Thank you very much, Honorable Klaas. I now see Honorable Pretorius.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Speaker. Good afternoon, Premier, members of the Cabinet, members of the House, members in the audience, and members online. Speaker, in welcoming the MEC for Health's introductory remarks, I wonder what else I have to say. I'm going to try my best. As the MEC so appropriately said, health is everybody's business. Without communities that are kept healthy and well, we can do nothing. There can be no education, no community safety, no economic recovery, nothing. Health is the baseline that underpins absolutely everything. Perhaps it is for that reason that the health department's priorities, which often succeed in making real improvements to the lives of citizens, sometimes attract so very little attention. Our department labors quietly in the background, often unrecognized for the consistently superior standard of care they provide. We know of instances in which patients who live in other provinces have crossed over into ours in order to receive a higher standard of care. Speaker, this government does not begrudge this extra burden. The Nobel Prize-winning surgeon Joseph Murray once said, and I quote, "To be a physician is to love people and like taking care of them," unquote. That, Speaker, is the ethos of the Department of Health. In the last year, the department played its part in the continued rollout of the largest vaccination program this century has ever seen, while simultaneously reintroducing regular health services and clearing non-essential surgery backlogs that had developed during the pandemic. They placed a renewed focus on mental health with the construction of new psychiatric units and worked on innovative solutions to the harms so sadly caused by alcohol and drugs, issues which are prevalent in our communities. They also put in place, Speaker, interventions against diseases other than COVID. Just in the last few months, at the end of the 2022-2023 financial year, the department launched an aggressive campaign to control an outbreak of measles in the Western Cape. Speaker, let's take a moment to reflect and appreciate the fact that this department has taken the necessary steps to avert what could have become an epidemic that affected not just a few people, but the entirety of our province. Health is everyone's business indeed. Speaker, all of this has taken place in a severely constrained environment. I fear that the economic situation will only continue to get worse. Our country's economic growth has been slowed almost to a standstill by the impact of the African National Congress's rolling blackouts. Decades of corruption have eroded the confidence of investors that once stimulated our economy. The simple reality is that the national government has driven our economy into the ground. Our currency does not have the purchasing power that it once did. Inflation is eating into our revenue streams, and there is simply less funding to go around. This year, we'll see national government withdraw several key grants amounting to millions of rands. The comprehensive HIV/AIDS component cut by 21,482 million rand. The National Tertiary Services Grant cut by 69,05 million rand. And the District Health Program Grant, Speaker, which enables a massive part of this province's response to TB and HIV, cut by a staggering 219 million rand. Frankly, Honourable Speaker, given these circumstances, I commend the Provincial Treasury and the Department of Health for managing to limit any decrease in funding to less than 1% and maintaining the department's status as the second largest budget allocation in this budget. The department's budget of 28.8 billion rand will ensure that despite substantial cuts in funding from national and the service delivery challenges we face, the department will continue to provide its high-quality services to the populace. Former World Bank President Yim Yong Kim coined the phrase, signs of delivery. He defined it as the growing knowledge base about how governments can successfully deliver. It goes without saying that the process of delivery is important to politics. To continuously make empty promises is not only dishonest and a betrayal of the trust of our citizens, but is also a threat to our democracy. In South Africa, our citizens have become cynical due to a lack of service. Today, I've been quite honest about the challenges this department face. I hope those citizens of our province listening to this debate will know that I'm being equally honest when I tell them this department will not let you down. In fulfilling its constitutional mandate to progressively realize the right to health care, the department is committed to ensuring high-quality care to all people of the province, in spite of budget cuts. Funding for our emergency medical service has been increased, and this will be used to shorten response times and ensure that those who need urgent medical services get them as soon as possible. The department will also spend more than 1.1 billion rand on mental health this year. This not only represents a renewed focus on an issue that has been ignored for too long, but also an allocation that goes straight to the heart of the Western Cape's long-running problems with drugs and alcohol. This will go hand in hand with a renewed 28.5 million allocation to violence prevention to deal with the effects of crime and social ills in our province. But perhaps more importantly than any of these attention-grabbing initiatives is the fact that all of them will take place against the backdrop of the department's regular but no less vital services, which will continue to be provided at the same level as they always have. In conclusion, Speaker, a wise man once said, politics is like learning to roller skate. You partly go where you want to go, and you partly go where the damn things take you. An even wiser person, who happens to be my wife, once also said, while she was attempting to teach me the pleasures of cooking, if you can read a recipe and follow the method, you can cook. We won't go into that now. Well, Speaker, at the risk of mixing metaphors, the Health Department has the recipe, it has the method, and it knows where it wants the roller skates to go. This budget represents the preservation of the gains this department has made, as well as the exciting new initiatives which will enhance the capacity of the Health Department to prioritize delivery. Speaker, there's no doubt that the impact of the contribution by officials on health is massive. With their drive, their energy, and their commitment, the bar has been set high. The challenge remains to improve further, to do better. Speaker, it's a pleasure to support this budget vote on behalf of the DA. Health is everyone's business. And with this in mind, I invite the members of the opposition to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Pretorius. I now see the Honourable Minister, Minister Mbombo.
Thank you. Thank you very much to Member Van Vogel. Thank you very much for allowing me to convince you to have a short nyana. Yes, of course, we agreed. We agreed. So therefore, I won't dwell much, but I just want to say thank you for supporting the budget. And also thank you that you indicated that you will go for us to the national, because the 1.5 billion indeed for the cuts. It's really, we can't do much about it. And also to member class, also thank you that you'll fight for us with the 1.5 billion that the cuts that we're getting from the national, because the province has given us 1.078 billion in order to make it up. But there's nothing we can do, I did mention. And then lastly, I think you have already heard the speech that all what you have raised, I already responded to. I think probably next time one must learn to how to edit. As like in the Atlantis I mentioned all of those. Thank you very much. To member Pretorius, thank you for supporting the budget, and also thank you for the kind words. You also, all of you, that you for acknowledging our staff. I want to thank Dr. Kluti and his team, top management, the coalface, from the porter to a professor, for everyone who has been able to be there for us, no matter what. Thanks to the clinic committees, hospital boards, as the representatives of the communities, the mayors, and also the councillors in the district health platform for assisting all of those. So I just want to thank everyone. Thank you again, Member Van Vogel, for shortening your speech. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Mbombo. Honourable members, that concludes the debate on this vote. I'm now going to ask the Secretary to read the 6th order of the day.
Debate on vote for Community Safety Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
Honourable Minister, before you begin, before I acknowledge you to speak, do you expect anyone from the department, or can we continue? Thank you very much. Honourable Minister, I see you. You can continue, Minister.
Thank you so much, Speaker. Honourable Premier, Cabinet colleagues, honourable members and guests in the gallery. It is a former professional NBA superstar, Alvin Hayes, who said blame is the coward's way out. If you know anything about sport, you will be aware that most of the players are quite tall. They are quite tall. Some are absent here. That is also quite tall in our legislature. But it could mean that if you are a shorter person, such as myself, and perhaps Member Kama, Speaker, it is always very difficult in order to make an impact in that particular sport. But in the NBA's history, Muggsy Bogues might have something to say about that, because he was merely 1.6. He was the shortest player in the history of the NBA. But never did he ever stand back for a challenge on the court. Instead, he faced the Giants head on, and in 1987, he was voted as the Rookie of the Year. He could have been a coward and said that this is too much for him. He could have been able to make tons of excuses, but he overcame. He stood tall, and we know that is needed in our current predicament, because regardless of our stature, regardless of our oversight role that we have here in our province, we have seen how we are able to take further steps and punch way, way above our weight. But members across the floor are a stark reminder of what Alvin Hayes has said. It's often blaming, and I do know that I have a speech that I will submit to the Speaker for the record, but I will literally want to put it down and make comments. In that this comments is I want sincerely the opposition to understand that this is my first budget that I'm tabling. My first of many. And as I make that commitment, I'm saying that I am continually wanting to engage. I'm continually wanting to learn and grow. It was Member Beerwinkel. Sadly, no member on the opposite benches that are present here physically, except Member Lekker, served with Member Beerwinkel. It was Member Beerwinkel that helped and assisted me with budget preparations when I was a new member during the 5th term. I've seen the value of members of the opposition being able to help and guide. I've seen on this side the input premier. through you, Speaker. Thank you so much. And dedication has been able to help me table a budget that will ultimately ensure that the words that Member Khalid said earlier, that we still have hope. Member Khalid quoted, we still have hope. And I took that knowing that the opposition has hope in the Western Cape government, has hope in the Western Cape government, knowing that we have done so much. So Speaker, we are tabling a budget of 754,160,000 rand for the 2023-2024 financial year. Speaker, that particular budget and what we have been doing in the LEAP program is extremely interesting. And it's so interesting that we are wanting to continue that particular successes that we've seen in the LEAP. I also want to say thank you to the opposition because they have often asked that LEAP should even be deployed outside of the city of Cape Town because they have seen the successes of what LEAP represents. So I want to say thank you to them as well. I also want to say thank you to Member Rachel Winvogel.
Order,
Member
members.
Rachel Winvogel that said earlier on, and I quote Member Rachel Winvogel that said that listening is a skill. So I sincerely trust that the opposition will take to heart the sentiment of Member Winvogel. So 350 million is allocated to the Law Enforcement Advancement Plan. And as a reminder, the LEAP is an initiative of the Western Cape government and is run in partnership with the City of Cape Town. LEAP stems from the Western Cape Safety Plan, which is a comprehensive plan to ensure greater safety across our province. A plan that is particularly focused on reducing murder by 50% by 2029. If you have inquired from the national government now what their plan is, they would have indicated that there is a cabinet resolution that was adopted by the National Cabinet where they have adopted an integrated violence and prevention and crime strategy. That particular crime strategy that was adopted by our national government and our alignment to the Western Cape Safety Plan fits in because we have seen national government can learn from our provincial government. The same like they have taken steps to ensure that our court watching brief is landing in other provinces. We commend the national government that they have adopted that particular strategy. Yes, sir. But this will ensure that the continued boots on the ground to assist and strengthen the hand of the SAPS is sustained. As we cannot allow our residents to continue to live in fear, the largest LEAP deployment, which is based on data, evidence, and where the need is the greatest in Delft, followed by Mfuleni, Kraaifontein, Nyanga, and Khayelitsha Site B. And since its inception, Speaker, these officers have ensured that 327 firearms are removed from our streets. This is significant considering that our commitment is to ensure that our communities are safer. Further to this, we have set 10 million aside for the introduction of LEAP stations. This is groundbreaking news, and I want to thank the Premier of the Western Cape for his innovative leadership here in our province, because we need to ensure that residents have a safe space where they can now engage our officers should they feel uncomfortable to go to the South African Police Service. When we consider rural safety, I'm deeply passionate about rural safety, wanting to ensure that there's no particular area outside of the city of Cape Town that ever would be considered as a stepchild, as 'n stiefkind. Ek is Afrikaans eerste taal. So daar gaan geen gemeenskap wees wat ooit gaan voel dat hulle is die stiefkind van die Weskaap nie. So what we will do is that we have currently 2 K9 units based in Swartland and in the Overstrand municipal areas, and these units do amazing work to operate not only in the boundaries of the Overstrand and of the Swartland municipalities, but across that entire district. And Speaker, that is a direct result because the South African Police Service have seen a 37% reduction in their K9 units. We have the National Commissioner on record 5 times since the year 2017 to 21, on record stating 5 times that the South African Police Service is unable to fulfill their mandate. I do not need to re-echo and restate the sentiment of Member Deirdre Baartman, who adequately stated that SAPS and their particular mandate is to prevent, combat and investigate crime, to protect the inhabitants of South Africa and their property, and to enforce the law. And we know SAPS itself is saying that they are unable to enforce their mandate. We have stepped up 350 million rand for the continuation of LEAP, because we have seen our SAPS officers on the ground is yearning for the extra capacity. We are also very clear, Speaker, that we are wanting to see an enhanced law enforcement approach in our province. When I speak about an enhanced law enforcement approach, it includes the South African Police Service, because it must be data-led and evidence-based. The operations must be earmarked to prevent crime, but also we must build an evidence-based. We should have an evidence-based approach to ensure that we can ultimately learn and grow and dismantle crime within our province. And that is what we will continue to do. But on the Rural Safety Summit units, 19.6 million rand has been allocated for that further support. So there's no cowards here. No cowards here. We will continue to step up our rural safety efforts. Do not end there, as we currently have 2 rural safety units, also based in Swartland and Overstrand municipalities. The Swartland unit has already been activated, while the Overstrand will come online within the next few days. I want to encourage the honourable members of this House, particularly the committee members, to join us at the launch next week. I will ensure that invitations are sent accordingly. And just as our K9 units, these units operate strictly throughout our entire district, and we have there allocated 9.5 million rand. Just last week, I had the privilege of handing over the graduation certificates of 39 peace officers who are from the Witzenberg, Bergrivier, as well as the Stellenbosch municipalities. We will further continue 2.5 million rand towards our peace officer and traffic warden assistance, and our assistance with regards to rural safety. As we remain in our rural parts of this province, today I state that the support of our districts and their crime fighting efforts amounts to 6 million rand, and that has been duly budgeted for. This is the Western Cape Safety Plan, which is a whole of government approach. It is an approach which now has been adopted by our national cabinet. Our national cabinet adopted. I'm probably, Speaker, going to have to repeat this a number of times so that it's just on the record. There's a policy, Speaker, that has been adopted, and that is an integrated crime and violence prevention strategy. I was the only member of the executive committee in the NCOP. No other MEC took the time in order to engage in the NCOP during the tabling of the integrated crime and violence prevention strategy adopted by our national cabinet. A direct approach to our Western Cape Safety Plan. But Speaker, through you, the residents of the Western Cape is well aware that the Western Cape has always been leading. We've always been leading, and we will continue to lead in that regard. When we consider police oversight, I want to make the following extremely clear, and I've said this before. Judge Zondo basically said, oversight in our country does not work. Oversight in our country has failed. That's why we have state capture. He literally said that Parliament has failed. That's why we have corruption at the national level, etc. In this particular role, the Premier has tasked me to ensure that there is an enhanced approach towards police oversight. And I want the committee, Speaker, I want this House to hold me accountable on that particular outcome as well, because I would want to see our oversight actually leads to better service delivery. We are not cowards. We want to take responsibility, because our tagline itself says that safety is everyone's responsibility, and we are stepping up in that regard. But in the same passion, I want to say that the committee equally must help us in that regard to hold us duly accountable. On the Chrysalis program, I won't go to much detail. I've already stated my bias in that particular regard, as we have consistently seen the good work that they are doing, and we will continue to budget 2.5 25.2 million to that particular program. The remaining of our young people and the youth empowerment is 28.4 million has been allocated as part of our expanded public works program. This is inclusive of a 4 million conditional grant and a 2.5 million allocation for tourism safety, which, just as the leap stations, is a brand new and groundbreaking allocation. What I also want to state at this particular time is that when we look at the partnerships, 7 million rand, that will be between our CPFs and our neighborhood watches. We are doing such a lot of initiatives and interventions here that is gradually being adopted by other provinces. We have seen the court watching brief, like I've said, and I do know, Speaker, that Member Kama is no longer the permanent member on this particular.
Order, members.
He is no longer the permanent member. The very person speaking now said listening is a skill. And I'm just saying,
order.
Permanent member.
Minister, speak to me.
Listening is a skill.
Order, members.
As I wrap up, saying that we are all about action, the Western Cape Liquor Authority, I'm so delighted that we have continued to see the growth in that particular space because it is an important entity in the regulation of liquor prices throughout our province. The important role they play with the liquor sector, particularly to reduce the harms associated with the abuse of liquor, cannot be highlighted enough. As year on year, this entity continues to be highly effective in the regulation of the retail of liquor throughout our province. We have seen that during the third quarter crime stats for 22-23 financial year shown that the abuse of liquor, whether at a liquor outlet or where it was abused, can directly be linked to various crimes where liquor was involved. I sincerely hope that no member here is currently under that particular influence based on the interjections, that there was 530 cases of grievously bodily harm and assault cases were recorded, 292 rape cases were recorded, while there was also 34 attempted murder.
Honourable Minister, please take your seat. Honourable Chief Whip, is there a point of order?
Yes, it is. Speaker, I would like you to rule on a statement that has just been made by the Honourable MEC.
I can repeat the statement for you.
Honourable Minister, you're not on the floor. Honourable Chief Whip, please speak to me. Honourable Chief Whip, can you address me?
Honourable Speaker, the MEC says, he speaks about the influence of alcohol and then he says, based on the interjections, I can see you are still under the influence. Now, I would like you to rule on that statement that he just...
Honourable Minister, you are not on the floor. There is a member on the floor. Can I please ask that you allow the member on the floor to raise the point of order? Honourable Chief Whip. Honourable Chief Whip.
Keep quiet if you can.
Honourable Chief Whip, please speak to me.
Step out.
Honourable members. Honourable Chief Whip, can you...
I would like you to rule on that, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Chief Whip, thank you very much. I heard the comment made by the Honourable Minister. He in fact did not say that. He asked, or he made a statement saying he hopes that. He sincerely hopes that. I heard that. No, member, my interpretation of that is that it was a rhetorical question and it was not it wasn't aimed at any particular member of the House, and therefore that is not a point of order. Honourable Minister, please continue.
So I sincerely hope so, Speaker. To now further strengthen the work of the Western Cape Liquor Authority in doing 56 million rand has been allocated. This is inclusive of 8.3 million, which was provided for the permanent appointment of 19 additional junior liquor inspectors to increase law enforcement capacity across our particular province. In everything we do, Speaker, our aim is to give effect to the safety plan as we want to ensure greater safety throughout our province. Our priorities are very clear. Hence, funding has been directed to Program 3, Provincial Police policing function. Funding is prioritized towards neighborhood watch accreditation and projects, EPWP, LEAP stations, tourism safety, K9 unit resourcing, rural safety units within district municipalities. In conclusion, I would like to thank our senior management that is all in the box today, from the HOD Advocate Pillay to all our chief directors, as well as our directors. Your work is not going unnoticed. We all have to remember that we have a very long way to go, and for that particular reason, we have to continue pushing ahead. We want to ensure that we create our safer communities. Our department is led by extremely capable people. I also have dedicated officials and ministerial staff members that have helped me. I've said this often and more than enough, that no one department can do it alone. I need help. We all need help, because it's a whole of government approach. It's an approach where we have in our government co-accountability measures to ensure that we all play our role. And I sincerely trust that for this particular financial year, Speaker, that this Parliament will continue to help, come with solid submissions, come with plans, so that we can ultimately move forward, because I would literally don't have time for cowards like the speech. Baie dankie.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I now see the Honourable Barnes.
Somlomo ndithi namhlanje andifuna uzongena ndipolitike kakhulu. Udlamo lume ngwenyawo kweli phondo. Sixakekile singabahlali. Angalila uTambo, angalila uMandela xa enokubona sinje. Kungekho nto siyenzayo. Abantwana bethu abakhuselekanga. Nathi asikhuselekanga siyoyika. I want to be practical today. When I came here, I told myself, Speaker, that what's the use of us trying to score cheap political points while we are far-fetched from realities? Speaker, let me go to Mitchell's Plain quickly, the constituency of our Minister of Mobility. Mitchell's Plain, as we speak currently, between the primary school, Beacon View, and the high school is an open field where dead bodies are found every second day. And that territory is owned by the number 8s. Reality. Communities are scared to move in Mitchell's Plain. Those are realities that are facing us. And that is where we are supposed to be speaking today. The past weekend, a woman was shot dead, a young woman, 37-year-old, in Philippi, because of extortion. And I know when I raise it in the community, in the committee, when I speak of extortion, I know even the response when the minister will respond. He will tell me that it is a duty of the national government to deal with extortion. It is not within the ombud of the province. But I'm asking myself, what is our role as a provincial government? While we are here, extortion is here, it is with us. Are we going to shift and look away because it is not our responsibility as we normally do? Honorable Speaker, I am choosing today not to speak about rural safety, because for some of us, when we hear the big plans of rural safety and the budgets that are allocated versus what is given to the metro, it is a shock. It is a very big shock, because when you go home, we stay in these communities. We live with these gangs when we go home. We are suffering the consequences of what is happening. It's no hearsay that you are telling. You speak of what you know. So Speaker, I'm not going to entertain the rural safety today. I'm just going to park it for another day, or maybe have coffee with the minister and elaborate more on that, so that when we speak budget, we speak on real matters that are affecting our communities. Honorable Speaker, the Department of Police Oversight and Community Safety has been allocated just over 745 million for this financial year. The budget for the department has been decreased over 30 million from the revised estimate of 775.8 million in the 2022-2023 financial year. The department in the budget book explained that the net decrease is mainly in relation to the reduction in the law enforcement advance plan LEAP funding with 50 million from 400 million in 2022-23 to the 350 million in 2023-24. Speaker, I would just want to know, could it be that we requested LEAP officers to be going to rural regions, that this is now decreased, or what would be the reason for that? Because the last time I checked, it was a huge interest on the agenda of the Western Cape government. The police crime stats for the third quarter of the 2022-2023, that is the 3 months between October and December in 2022, showed that the community reported serious crimes increased by 11.2% to over 80,000 reported cases. The Western Cape's contribution to the crime nationally is 18.9%, the second highest in the country behind Gauteng. Murder rate increased by 13.4% to 1,198 murders, and the province has 8 police stations in the top 30 murder stations nationally. Sexual offenses increased by 13%, while rape increased by over 16%. In these 3 months, over 1,500 women and children fell victim to the rape in the province. I will speak later about GBV, Speaker, where we get to understand that even rape is not taken serious. We don't budget in this department for GBV because it gets to refer to another department for some reason, while we are the first respondents when it comes to crime. It is in this regard that the budget cuts to these departments are shocking and unacceptable. In the face of rising serious crimes, including murder, rape, and sexual offenses, the DA government has responded by reducing the budget. And the ANC cannot support a budget that is cutting expenditure on programs to prevent crime such as LEAP. Honorable Speaker, it is sometimes claimed in this House that the ANC never supported the safety plan in the beginning. This is dishonesty and deliberate falsehood, Speaker. It is the ANC that always called for this provincial government to invest resources on programs to prevent crime. For many years before 2019, the DA believed that Section 206 prevented it from investing resources on crime prevention interventions. Millions were rather wasted on holiday programs for youth in schools. I hear them as they are making a noise now. It's the same that they are doing to GBV. 10 years later, when they fund GBV, they will forget that the ANC made a noise about it. Premier Windy and Member Plato bears knowledge of what I'm saying. The ANC reminded them all the time about the ANC's successful program of the Bambanani Against Crime Initiative and other successful programs that help reduce crime in the province. Thank you for responding, Premier. I can see the Premier knows. So there is no way that we would be opposed to Premier Windy finally acting on our demands. How can we oppose the Premier? With regards to the safety plan, here are the things that we are opposed to. Take note. Firstly, we are opposed to the 50 million reduction in the budget for the LEAP program. Secondly, we are opposed to the fact that the budget for the program only focuses on boots on the ground and ignores the need to address causative factors of crime. This we have made repeatedly in the House, and yet it is still ignored. The point is emphasized in the department's own provincial policing needs and priorities report. I will return to this point shortly as well, Speaker. Thirdly, Speaker, we do not agree with the preferential treatment of the city of Cape Town, which gets the largest share of the department's budget. Despite the clear need of the deployment of LEAP officers in municipalities outside the metro, I've raised it in my opening. Lastly, Speaker, we do not agree on all the millions that are given to JP Smith, and he uses them as he pleases, with no form of accountability to the committee. The committee would know I'm raising it numerous times in our meetings. We have been calling for improved oversight mechanisms over the expenditure of this budget. We want JP Smith to appear before the committee on quarterly and annual basis to report on the performance of the LEAP program. These are the reasons for our rejection of the LEAP, but these should never be misconstrued as rejection of the LEAP program. What we are vehemently opposed to, however, are the frivolous calls for the devolution of policing functions to the provinces. This is pure politicking by the DA, as it knows that it can't handle such an important function as policing. This is exposed by the number of responsibilities it has failed on as reported in the PNPs. The latest available PNP report correctly noted the increase of violent crimes and murders in the province, with a 6.8 increase in murders in the province in 2021-22. The PNP noted the increased GBV cases, including that 5.3 of murders were related to domestic violence in 2020-2021. It noted that substance abuse and drugs are key drivers of crime and violence, and that since 2013-14, the Western Cape has been ranked as the province with the highest proportion of drug-related crimes. All these are responsibilities of provincial government, Speaker, which is the budget has failed to respond to. The PNP clearly exposes the DA failures in combating crimes, especially gangsterism and other violent crimes. There is clear disjuncture in the recommendations of the PNP and what the provincial government is doing to fight crime. Besides the deployment of the LEAP officers, the provincial government has relegated its role to being a distant spectator and an armchair critic. Despite the rise in GBV and femicide, this budget has failed to respond adequately. As expected, Speaker, we will be told about the whole government and the society approaches. This is the DA's excuse for its failures to address pressing challenges in society. The HOD stated clearly in the meeting that the department has no direct mandate to combat GBV, which is a challenge. Today we will be challenged on what we are raising. 10 years later, it will be policy. When the safety plan was started, we were told about the safety cabinet, wherein all MECs were allocated tasks to address crime. Honorable Speaker, the MEC Bradell and MEC Summers are the worst performing in this regard. They are the worst performing in this
Order,
regard.
members.
For their failures to ensure upgrading of informal settlements, improving accessibility of lighting, that reduces crime. They can't link the two. They are followed by the MEC Mare and Fernandez to their failures to address social ills and preventing youth from being recruited into crime and gangs. The substance use disorder has been identified as a key driver of crime by PNPs, and these two mothers have failed us dismally in addressing this. What about GBV and femicide? There is no GBV policy in the government. There is not even an updated sexual harassment policy in this province. The DA has failed dismally to ensure community safety in the province. Honorable Speaker, the ANC reiterates its call for LEAP officers to be deployed to rural communities. We don't understand why the decrease now, as it has been confirmed that areas outside the metro contribute 47% of crime, while city contributes 53%. Why then all resources are put into the metro? The DA government is hiding behind budgets constrained for its failures to equitably distribute the LEAP officers. Speaker, we welcome the progress made in building the Makaza police station this week, on which the station will be built and it was unveiled. We commend the SAPS and all the stakeholders that have assisted in making this possible. That's the way we want to see government moving. In the budget book, the department committed to strengthen its community-based strategy and aims to build capability and partnerships with local communities through continued support to neighborhood watcher structures, district community safety forums, and community police forums. Honorable Speaker, for the first time, MEC Allen confirmed that the CPFs are targeted, weakened, and underfunded for political reasons. He said this during deliberations in the committee. He confirmed that what we already know and what we have been saying for years. The disparities in the funding allocation for neighborhood watches and the CPF make it clear that the DA made its mission to collapse the CPFs. How is it acceptable that in 2021, only 49 CPFs are funded to the tune of 373,000? In 2021-22, only 99 CPFs were funded and received 495,000. In 2022-23, only 73 CPFs were funded and they received 600,000. Deputy Speaker, another disparity in the funding of CPS is how a station in Simonstown could receive over 20,000 for its program, while a CPF at Mfuleni only receives 5,000. It does not make sense, and it was a deliberate move by the DA to weaken the CPFs. Honorable Speaker, the ANC does not support the budget. It has failed to respond to the need for increased deployment of LEAP officers. Crime hotspots like Menenberg, where a 5-year-old Devontae was shot in the head in gang crossfire, does not have LEAP officers. In the areas which these LEAP officers are deployed, they are usually overstretched and overworked. The ANC wants the Premier to go back to deployment of 3,000 LEAP officers as he promised in 2019. It is only concerning that these officers are not employed permanently.
Order. Order, members. Order, members.
Thank you, Speaker. Once again, Premier still thinking he's on a campaign. You are the Premier. It is also concerning that these officers are not employed permanently. This is why the officers to which we invested heavily in training are now being poached to join JP Smith and other law enforcement agencies. What a waste of money. We must look at increasing funding for recruitment and training because we have lost a number of trained officers. Honorable Speaker, we reject the budget because it sets in motion that DA's political agenda to devolve policing powers. Having failed to recruit and deploy its own detectives, the DA in this budget has now made available 10 million to establish LEAP police stations. This is outside the department's mandate and scope of work, while LEAP officers are reduced. It must rather redirect this money to install CCTVs in Khayelitsha and other crime hotspot areas. It must invest towards addressing the environmental factors in crime hotspots that make it conducive for violent crimes to thrive in poor working class communities. Because of its failures to respond to the above challenges, the ANC does not support this budget. Diabulela Somlo.
Thank you, Akbar Abans. I now see the Honourable Kasim.
The EFF would like to invite the Honourable Minister to step into our major gang-infested communities and stick around for just a few days so that he can actually realise how serious things has become for residents in such communities. And Minister, we know that you hail from Mitchell's Plain, which is the usual response that you'll probably give me, but I also come from Strandfontein, another part of Mitchell's Plain where gang activity is also starting to increase, but not yet that bad as gang activity in areas like Woodlands, Lentegeur, Manenberg and Nova Park, among others. If you know the real issues of a community as you claim, then you would implement a proper safety plan for not only Mitchell's Plain, but the entire province to ensure a decrease in crime and more so gang and drug activity. The EFF cannot support a budget that decreases funds in a very critical department that deals with crime, especially with the province being number one when it comes to crime activity in this country. And more so with all the money being spent annually on this department, nothing seems to really change in such communities because this province failed to plan and failed to properly address the major factors or issues that leads to drug and gang activity in such communities. And it is no secret that this DA-led City of Cape Town Municipality's Human Settlement Department even fund gang activity via contracts awarded to gang leaders, and while at the same time, in recent news and in media are facing allegations of fraud and corruption by the MACO member who led that very same department. At the backdrop of all of this DA-led provincial government was to waste more than 700 million into a failing initiative, which they call the safety plan, which does not even speak to half of the major issues affecting our communities when it comes to crime. The way the funds are allocated and prioritized to different items on this budget, we can rest assured that nothing will change, as it once again does not speak to the real issues which lead people to commit crime. Because crime is a symptom of a far greater problem, and to think it can be easily policed away is a misdiagnosis. Those who see crime as the only alternative need to be treated with hope of a better life, away from poverty, homelessness, and unemployment, among others. So ministers, start working hand in hand with other departments to ensure that your safety plan actually start doing justice to our communities. The amount of drug houses which have been shut down so far by this DA is ridiculous compared to the amount still actively operating within our communities. This department, along with SAPS, received emails and complaints of drug and gang activity, but there's still no proper intervention plans. In fact, the minister promised for the past 2 weeks to give an updated report on how many drug dens they have closed, where exactly, and who now occupies those properties. But to date, nothing. Speaker, in conclusion, the EFF rejects this budget.
Thank you very much, Honourable Kasim. And I see Honourable Christians.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, it is reported in the media that the confidence and trust in the police is at an all-time low. Speaker, building trust in communities is a major thing that the department must look at, because when the community looks at LEAP officers or law enforcement, they refer to them as cops, and they might be labeled the same. So I want to know from the minister, what is his department doing that the community can, look at the police with confidence and trust. But Speaker, I need to say that Member Barnes is misleading the House with her assertions of the CPFs and the neighborhood watches. She knows that was not the discussions in the standing committee. We are calling for the devolution of powers from national government. The ANC national government has failed us, has failed the people of the Western Cape, has failed this people, and we need the powers because we believe power need to be yes, Speaker.
Honourable Christians, there's a point of order in the House. Is that the Deputy Chief Whip of the opposition?
Honourable Speaker, can the Honourable Christians please submit a substantive motion? He's accusing Honourable Barnes of misleading the House. It's quite serious.
Honourable Barnes, my apologies. What's your point of order?
Speaker, it's actually shocking. Honourable Christians was just supposed to say I was absent. If he doesn't know what we are speaking about, he must just leave it. He can't be responding to my statement.
That is not a point of order. Honourable Christians, please continue.
Speaker, what I want to say is the minister explained in detail in the standing committee why neighborhood watch is getting more. I gave us to the point why neighborhood watches is getting more, because of the amount of neighborhood watches. So he sees misleading the House. I'm repeating that. But I want to say this, Minister, are we losing the battle when it comes to halving the murder rate? Murder is increasing. Your target of halving the murder rate to, until 2029, is that still on par? What are you doing to make sure that less and less people are killed in the Western Cape? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Christians. I now see the Honourable Bosman.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, if there's one thing that we can all agree on in this House, is that crime has reached epidemic proportions in this country. That is an assertion that finds common agreement not only in this Parliament, but also across our communities. Our people are tired of seeing certain members stand in this House and cry wolf about community safety, and they weaponize the very real pain that victims of crime face all the time to score political points. I'd love to engage with the work of fiction that was presented here by the honourable members from the opposition, but I'm going to leave that version of Harry Potter for someone else to look into. Honourable Speaker, as leaders, we've been appointed to deal with crime, and this budget just does that. The budget sees the department change its name in recognition of the police oversight role it plays, because this department does not have a boots on the ground mandate. That is with the character from Harry Potter who wears the hat. The department completed its yearly ritual of visiting and investigating every single one of the Western Cape's 151 SAP stations. They focused on ensuring that policing in our communities includes important initiatives such as the response to GBV, because ultimately our oversight over the police ensures that we know that victim support rooms exist in those police stations where they should. What they found in police stations has sometimes been shocking, because after years of neglect, it has become all too predictable that SAPS is not able to maintain police stations in this province. The Western Cape remains chronically under-resourced, with the SAPS to population ratio having decreased massively, and that's been admitted to by the National Commissioner in this Parliament. Speaker, let me be quite clear. This government views every officer of the South African Police Service as a vital partner in the effort to eradicate crime in our province. And the many men and women in blue who put their lives on the line every day to keep us safe have our sincere gratitude, but they also have our sympathy too. Persisting in an organization that refuses to train them to high enough standards, issue them with functional equipment, or station them at adequately maintained facilities, is clear that SAPS nationally does not care. Instead of making sure that police officers are adequately equipped, SAPS rather ensures that criminals have guns in their arsenal. In a sample of 38 SAP stations, 68.4 of them had no access control points, 26.3% of them had no holding cells, and we know those ones in Knysna and in Pito, and 10.5% of them did not have any detention facilities. How are our officers able to carry out their work with this lack of support in these circumstances are beyond me. This leaves our street-level law enforcement officers to fill the gaps themselves. And frankly, Mr. Speaker, it is only through the heroism and diligence of these people that we have a police force at all. It is perhaps little wonder why so many of South Africa's best police officers are leaving SAPS in their droves to join law enforcement units in the city of Cape Town or in the Western Cape government. Speaker, I want to read all of this into the record because, as you know, some members are professional fiction writers. But I also want us to understand the context in which this department has made these budget allocations. It is not the job of Minister Allen or his department.
Bosman, please take your seat. Honourable Deputy Chief Whip, is that a point of order?
No, I want to know whether Honourable Bosman is prepared to take a question. He's got 33 minutes, so maybe he can.
Okay, please take your seat. I will. Honourable Bosman, are you prepared to take a question?
Unfortunately not, Honourable Speaker.
Honourable Syed, Honourable Bosman is not prepared to take a question.
Through you, the Minister of Education has not issued a report card for that learner
Honourable Bosman, can you please continue with your speech?
Speaker, as I said, it is not the job of Minister Allen or his department to police this province, but as SAP struggles to remain a viable organisation, it has fallen to them to do something. Speaker, I was raised to believe that when someone needs help, you help them, even if no one else does, and we know the ANC does not want to help. It is the same ethos that has informed the Western Cape's government response to crime. The data shows us that LEAP works. More than 1,200 officers now patrol the streets of the Western Cape, arresting criminals, confiscating illicit drugs and illegal firearms, and ensuring that our communities are safe. This budget takes this program further. It is allocating 10 million for a new LEAP station in Philippi, because this is vital. Because what we know, Mr. Speaker, is that when load shedding hits, police stations in the Western Cape close down. So we need a safe space for LEAP members to be able to deploy. Honourable Speaker, we've also poured money into the expansion of our safety in rural communities through our dedicated rural safety units, and they'll receive more than 9.5 million rand, while more than 10 million will be allocated to expand the K9 units, because we know that SAPS is not able to run a functional K9 unit. The latter initiative is particularly valuable, given that these police dogs are one of the many initiatives that have been cut, reduced and defunded by SAPS. Finally, Mr. Speaker, this department is mobilizing communities to fight crime alongside it. Members of this House often tell us that CPFs are not supported and neighborhood watches are supported. But I think we need to just look at the numbers to see that community activists are being supported to ensure that police oversight happens. What I hope members will see from these initiatives is that a DA-led government is totally committed to curing the disease of crime.
Order.
Because we know that the African National Congress are the sponsors of crime. Speaker, I know that there will be those who criticize this budget for a perceived lack of spending in some areas, but it is the inefficiencies and failures of our National Police Service that require this department to spend much more of its budget to subsidize the crime-fighting effort. What I see in front of me is a budget that takes every possible step to ensure that the safety of our people, despite the many, many challenges placed in our path, is looked after. For this reason, I unequivocally support this budget on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, and if members of this House truly care about the plight of our citizens, I'd encourage them to stop spewing fiction and start looking at the facts. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Bosman. Honourable Minister Allen.
Thank you so much, Speaker. I'll try to wrap up as quickly as possible. I firstly want to say to Member Christians, through you, Speaker, thank you so much for the support. I would also then want to state that I made note of the comment with reference to Member Ayanda Barnes, and I think deep down, I firmly believe that she wouldn't have wanted to mislead the House, but it might just be that the data was looked at probably just incorrectly. So the 47 and 53% that you were Speaker, the 47% and the 53% that Member Barnes quoted gave the illusion that it was reference to crime, but it was actually, that comment I've made was based on the amount of drug houses in the city of Cape Town and outside of the city of Cape Town. So 53% outside. But when we look at the data, Speaker, with regards to where crime is happening, the data, and Speaker, through you to Member Kama, this might be a good opportunity for him to make a note in that it is actually 78%, 78.5% of murders are occurring in the city of Cape Town. And we all know, through you, Speaker, to members of the opposition, that over 66% of the population is also in the city of Cape Town. I also don't think that Member Barnes attempted to mislead the House with regards to Simonstown and CPF, but for the record, that is an incorrect assertion that was made with regards to a 20,000 and a 5,000. That is not true. With regards to the comment made...
Order, members, the Minister is responding. You had an opportunity, the Minister is now responding.
With regards to the comment made against the HOD, I think there is... the beauty of Parliament is that we have YouTube and we have recordings, and that particular sentiment that was attributed to the HOD does not exist. But deep down, ek dink jy sy wil hy is mislei het nie. But I do appreciate the inputs from Member Barnes, and I commit, Speaker, that we will definitely, I will take it up in order to have that particular cup of coffee with Member Barnes. We might need 2 cups of coffee. When we, there wasn't much, Speaker.
Order, members.
There wasn't much to reply to, but my sentiment is that we will again appeal to members of this particular House to read the safety plan. Member Kama is on record to state die 3 Julie 2022. I'm going to say this extremely slow. I know I need to go somewhere because communities are waiting for us, but this is what Member Kama said. Die 3 Julie 3rd of July 2022, from the onset. And I sincerely trust I don't need to explain what that means. From the onset, the ANC was very critical of this plan. A clear indication that this plan, the safety plan, was never supported from the ANC side. And then to make the assertion that they've been supporting this plan is also an incorrect assertion. It was also for the record. I want the record to reflect, Speaker, that it was actually the ANC government between the years of 2006 and 2008 that actually stopped the Bambanani. Then every year we hear the sentiment, bring back the Bambanani. It was the ANC that stopped the Bambanani. And I want the residents to know that it was the ANC that stopped the Bambanani. I also appreciate the comments made. I also appreciate the comments made from Member Gillian Bosman. I want to say through you, Speaker, to Member Bosman, thank you so much for your diligence. You are highly capable as a chairperson, and I sincerely trust that the committee will continue to work in a collaborative approach. So thank you so much. I've made notes of the EFF's comments as well. Since my arrival here in this parliament, I've been very vocal with regards to drug houses and in holding SAPS accountable to close that amount of drug houses. But as I conclude, it was also on the 16th of December 2019 when the leader of the EFF, and this is also quoted, he said, give the EFF 5 years to build a school or you don't elect us because we would be useless. I just want to tell the EFF that the time is running out on the 5-year period. But Minister Mania is more than happy to give input with regards to the accelerated capacity on how to build schools. But the EFF, we note their remarks to safety. I bring in the comment with the EFF making the undertaking that they will build a school in 5 years, because the 5 years in school, if you look at schools, it contributes to safety. Cultural affairs and sport contribute to safety. Each and every person that is serving in cabinet has a role towards safety. Under the leadership of the Premier, Speaker, we will continue to ensure that we are not cowards. We will continue to ensure that we put money where our mouth is. We will continue to ensure that we do everything in our power to hold SAPS accountable, but also to strengthen the hand of the South African Police Service, because we are wanting to see a capable and professional police service. 2 days ago, 6 members of the South African Police Service were arrested in a takedown, and that particular takedown is a strong sentiment that we want to say to every SAPS member in our province: if you are corrupt, corrupt or inept, you will be tracked down and you will ultimately land up in jail. We have received, and here now I have the latest Section 19 and 21 report. Member Kamat didn't always take the liberty of reading it, but this particular report actually highlights the amount of cases that SAPS investigate, and we actually keep a handle on it. We apply the pressure, the oversight to lead to better service delivery. We want to make sure that professional services and that SAPS members that are unscrupulous, we will make sure that they are held accountable. The only province with a Western Cape Safety, with a Western Cape Community Safety Act, and Gauteng is now following in that step. The Premier shared amazing news with us that even sentiments coming out of other provinces is that a new policing model is required. And Speaker, I will undertake to never call it devolution again if the ANC will agree to a new policing model, because it still means that power should not be in Pretoria. Choices concerning our province shouldn't be made 1,500 kilometers away from where we are. The people of Mitchell's Plain, 1,500 kilometers, it should be closer to the people, and that is what we are calling for. And under the leadership of the Premier, we remain committed. But we are going to say this to each and every member of the opposition.
Order, members.
And every member of the opposition, Speaker. As I conclude, Speaker, I've checked with each and every cabinet member. No cabinet member have received any document with regards to where we should be prioritizing funding, where we should be cutting funding. We will always welcome those inputs. To make it simple, it's as if I'm going...
Minister, please speak to me.
So we are very open as a provincial government.
Members.
As a provincial government, we are very
Order.
open. We are very open to receiving input.
Minister, please take your seat. Honourable Deputy Chief Whip of the Opposition, is that a point of order?
Yes, Honourable Speaker, can my dear friend tell us what's the purpose of the debate in the House, perhaps?
That's not a point of order. Please take your seat, Honourable Deputy Chief Whip. Honourable Minister.
Speaker, as I conclude, under the leadership of Premier Windy, we remain committed to taking input, taking advice from members of the opposition, because we are ultimately want to ensure that this particular province can succeed. I also want to again say that I'm so thankful for the ANC that was quoted in this house on the 14th of April when they said, make Regan the MEC. So baie dankie. Ons luister, van ons wil alles doen en ons vermoë om die provinsie veiliger te maak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Honourable members, that concludes the debate on this vote. I'm going to give 1 minute for the officials to exit so that we can go on to the 7th order of the day. All right. Thank you very much. I'm going to move straight on. Secretary, can you please read the 7th order of the day?
Consideration of votes on schedule, Western Cape Appropriation Bill, B2 2023.
Thank you very much. I've been informed by the Chief Whip that the Programming Authority resolved that there would be no list of speakers, but that parties who wish to do a declaration on all the votes and the schedule now be afforded an opportunity to make such a declaration for a maximum of 3 minutes. I recognize the ANC. Honourable Syed.
Honourable Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity. As has been stated in each and every debate in all the departments, we want to re-emphasize that we do not support this particular budget. And the reasons have been made very, very clear. The budget allocations and failure to actually allocate in the priority areas that the ANC has stated perpetuates the apartheid legacy in this particular province. It fails to address the social distance between government in this particular province and the people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Syed. I now see the the EFF, if they so wish.
Thank you, Speaker. I cannot see if our party leader is in the chambers. If it's not, I can speak on behalf of him. The EFF would like to put on the record once again that we do not support the budget, and once again, if this House can please address the issues of racism within this House. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if Good is online. If so, Good. ACDP.
Speaker, the ACDP supports the budget, and we believe that, the budget will...
Honourable members, there's a member on the floor. Honourable Christians, my apologies.
No, Speaker, we believe that the budget will advance the people of the Western Cape. There's, of course, a lot of challenges, but we will, as an ACDP, work hard here and keep the executive accountable. That is the job of the opposition. But we believe this budget is a budget that speaks to the people, and we can really support it. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. I recognize the EFF, the FF plus. Al-Jamaa, and then the Democratic Alliance.
Honourable Speaker, the DA members have already indicated in the respective votes that we support this. The votes, we support the budget. We will be seeing a 1.1 billion rand being spent over the MTF period in terms of giving power to citizens, in terms of energy. 40 billion rand will be devoted to the Western Cape's new growth initiative in terms of jobs. There's an extra 396 million rand added to the safety budget, which has now reached nearly 5 billion rand. The budget not only funds policing, but also pays for 987 million rand of the Department of Social Development's Crime Prevention and Support Program, and several notable allocations have been made in terms of education regarding the 3 billion rand for education infrastructure, as well as the 350 million rand for the Rapid Build School Program. 193 million rand has been allocated to the school feeding scheme over the next 3 years in order to keep our children well fed and ready to learn. Provincial Treasury has worked diligently to plug holes left by the decrease in conditional grants from national government, with 85 billion rand allocated to healthcare in the Western Cape. This includes 240 million rand for mental health services and an additional 92 million rand to improve the response to tuberculosis in the province. The budget of action will work for the people of this province and in line with the committee report of the 24th of March, which anyone is willing to read. The DA supports the budget. Unfortunately, ANC did not support the budget. I note that Al-Jamaa in the committee reports on vote 12 did not support the budget, even though they were not present on the actual budget committee meeting on Monday specifically. And I look forward to read the minutes of the House of the past Monday regarding how we voted. And I look forward to when this budget passed for the Premier to assent to both the additional and the main budget, which will assist with education infrastructure. I thank you.
Thank you very much, honourable members. Honourable members, that concludes the declaration on the consideration of the votes and the schedule of the bill. I have to announce that there are currently 30 honourable members present and entitled to vote, and the House is therefore quorum. Are there any objections, honourable members? Are there any objections to votes 1 to 14 and the schedule of the Western Cape Appropriation Bill? There is an objection, and therefore those in favour of the question being put and being adopted say yes. Those not in favour of the question being approved, please say no. I think the ayes have it. Question approved. The honourable members, the secretary, or just for the record, votes and the schedule of the Western Cape Appropriation Bill have therefore been approved. The secretary will now read the 8th order of the day.
Finalization of the Western Cape Appropriation Bill, including the clauses and the short title.
Thank you very much. I recognize the Honourable, the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the Western Cape Appropriation Bill B2 2023, including the clauses and short title, be finalised.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. There being no list of speakers, are there any objections to the bill, the clauses and short titles being finalised? Are there any objection? There is an objection. I will therefore put the question to the House. Those in favour of the question being adopted, please say yes. Yes. Those not in favour of the question being approved, please say no.
No.
No. I think the ayes have it, and the question is therefore approved. Okay. The finalisation, including clauses and short title of the Western Cape Appropriation Bill B2 of 2023 are therefore approved. The Secretary will read the bill.
Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. The bill will now be sent to the Premier for assent. The Secretary will now read, honourable members, the 9th order of the day.
Consideration of the report of the Rules Committee of 24 March 2023 on the appointment of trustees to represent the members of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament on the Pension Fund Board of Trustees, namely Honorable Member D. America as the trustee and the Honorable Member AP Fund of Season as the alternate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. Honourable members, are there any objections to the report being adopted? No objections. Agreed to. Honourable members, after a very long 2 days, that concludes the business for the day. The House is adjourned. The Secretary will now end the meeting and all members will be exited from the sitting. The House is adjourned.